Breathe slowly with me for a moment, and let the room grow softer around you. Imagine the faint glow of a lamp, the kind that doesn't demand attention but settles into the corners, warm and steady. You're safe here, under your blanket, the gentle hush of night pressing like a friend's hand against your shoulder. And while the world outside continues in its hurried rhythm, here we step back, far back, into a time where the first chapters of cities, stories, and stars were written on clay. Tonight, we travel together to ancient Mesopotamia, not through loud proclamations of battles or kings, but through the quiet threads of daily life, the kind of life that feels, in some ways, surprisingly close to your own. But here's the twist you didn't expect so soon. Mesopotamia, this land between the rivers, wasn't just the birthplace of writing and law. It may also be the birthplace of the lullaby itself. Archaeologists have uncovered traces, clay tablets and faint inscriptions, that suggest parents thousands of years ago soothed their children with gentle songs, the same way you might hum under your breath tonight. So, as you lie back, the very cadence that calms you now may echo from voices stretching across millennia. It's not distant history, it's continuity. And you and I are part of it, breathing into the same long night. Stay with me, because in a moment I'll tell you about how the scent of bread at dawn once drifted through narrow Mesopotamian streets, or how families gathered beneath the stars that guided both shepherds and merchants. But first, imagine the air itself, warmer than the night you know, touched with the faint dust of the river's edges, and stirred by breezes carrying reeds' soft rustle. The land of Mesopotamia, cradled between the Tigris and the Euphrates, wasn't only fertile for crops, it was fertile for imagination, for rituals, for stories whispered while oil lamps flickered against mud brick walls. Now, let's lower the lamp a little more and move gently deeper. Close your eyes to the modern walls around you and replace them with sun-dried clay bricks, cool to the touch even after a long day of heat. Hear, faintly, the sound of footsteps in sand outside, as if neighbors returned from evening tasks, voices hushed, respectful of the night. This was no monolith of a civilization, but a patchwork of villages, towns, and later cities, each with its own rhythms of work and worship. And a surprising detail, so few imagine, is that most of Mesopotamian life unfolded not in palaces, not in temples, but in kitchens, workshops, fields, and markets. The everyday was a true empire, and it is there that I want to lead you as you breathe evenly. Picture yourself walking barefoot across a cool courtyard, the stones smoothed by years of use. In the corner, jars sealed with bitumen hold water drawn earlier from a river. A clay oven glows faintly from the embers of bread baked hours before. In this simple setting, families gather at the end of their days, perhaps listening to an elder share a story that was half memory, half myth. And here's where curiosity curls its fingers around you. What did those stories sound like? Were they about kings and gods, or about the small but powerful drama of daily survival, of floods, of harvests, of neighbors both kind and difficult? In a few moments, we'll discover more together. But let the question linger for now. And as the thought drifts, let me reassure you, you're safe in this journey. No sharp turns, no harsh truths. Only the slow unfolding of a world that shaped so much of what we know today. Even the very act of telling stories like this, of setting memory into sequence, was nurtured in Mesopotamia, with styluses pressed into clay, line after careful line. Yet, ironically, most of those who lived there never wrote at all. Their history is traced instead in fragments of tools, in the worn edges of stairways, in the delicate impressions of woven baskets left hardened in mud long turned to stone. In a moment, I'll share the hidden rhythm of their nights, how they marked time not with the ticking of clocks, but with the sweep of constellations. But before that, let your body sink into the surface beneath you. Feel the weight of the blanket, the slow expansion of your breath. Imagine that somewhere in Mesopotamia, thousands of years ago, another person was lying beneath the same stars, listening to the same night sounds. The croak of frogs near irrigation canals, the soft call of owls across reed beds, and drifting into dreams. You and they are not so far apart. And now, gently, let's return to the twist I promised. The lullabies. Picture a mother, perhaps in Ur, perhaps in Babylon, seated near her small child. Her voice moves softly, the word perhaps invoking the moon goddess or speaking of cattle and fields, or simply humming without words. That sound, fragile yet insistent, becomes a bridge between wakefulness and sleep. It is not unlike the bridge you're crossing right now, carried not by words alone, but by rhythm, breath, and trust. So the next time you feel a yawn rise, know that in some way, you are participating in humanity's oldest known sleep ritual. Isn't that something worth lingering on? Stay with me, because we're only at the beginning. Soon we'll wander through the early markets, hear the barter of dates and barley, and feel the cool shade of palm groves. But for now, simply rest in the knowledge that behind the monumental temples, behind the king's decrees etched into stone, there was life that pulsed slowly, warmly, familiarly. Life that felt, to those who lived it, much like yours feels to you. Uncertain at times, yes, but grounded in food, in shelter, in companionship, in stories shared at the edge of day. And perhaps that's the most important thing to carry into this journey. History is not about the distance of centuries. It is about the closeness of details. A child reaching for bread, a pot bubbling over a fire, a man stepping carefully into irrigation water, balancing hope and labor. Tonight, as you drift with me through Mesopotamia, let those images guide you softly, without urgency, like a current that knows its course. We'll pause here on this threshold, with a promise that in Chapter 1, we will step quietly into the daily rhythm of a Mesopotamian household at dawn, when the city stirs awake and the first loaves are baked. But already, the lamp burns low, the night holds steady, and your eyes grow heavier with each breath. Stay close, for the story is only beginning, and there is so much more to see. Imagine the faintest gray light before dawn, not the harsh glare of alarms or street lamps, but a softer glow seeping into narrow alleys of clay and stone. You're there now, walking slowly with me, hearing the muted stirrings of life in a Mesopotamian city as it begins to wake. The sky is still heavy with night, stars paling against the horizon, but already the hearts of households stir. Families here rise with the rhythms of the rivers, their sense of time woven not by clocks, but by the steady pull of sun and moon, the certainty of seasons, and the urgent needs of crops and flocks. Inside one home, a small courtyard breathes with shadows. The oven, built from clay and shaped by hands that remembered countless mornings, still holds a memory of last night's heat. A woman bends close, stoking embers with careful breath, coaxing flame from ash. She takes barley flour, stored in a jar sealed tightly against moisture, and mixes it with water, the sound of dough folding into itself like a gentle hush. In a moment, she'll flatten the mixture and place it against the hot wall of the oven, where it will cling and slowly rise, filling the air with the comforting aroma of bread. This is the scent of dawn in Mesopotamia, earthy, warm, reassuring. And perhaps, if you breathe slowly enough, you can almost smell it now. Stay with me, because in a moment we'll step outside and see how the rest of the neighborhood wakes. But for now, pause in this kitchen. Notice the child stirring from sleep, rubbing their eyes, still wrapped in a woven blanket that smells faintly of smoke and reed mats. The father sits nearby, repairing a simple tool, his fingers steady even in half-light. There is no rush here, only the steady unfolding of tasks known to each generation. And yet, beneath the calm, you sense the quiet importance. Bread for strength, tools for work, a household aligned with the rhythm of daybreak. Now, softly, we step beyond the doorway, out into the alley. The ground is packed earth, smoothed by countless footsteps. A neighbor nods in greeting, carrying a clay jar balanced carefully against their hip, on the way to draw fresh water before the sun climbs higher. Somewhere, a donkey brays, its voice echoing between walls. And further down, you hear the quiet splash of oars where fishermen already set out on the river, hoping for a good catch to bring to the market later in the day. This city, whether you are in the poor or one of the many other settlements, is alive not in bursts but in layers. Each person's movement adds to a pattern, like the weave of a rug. And here's a small secret worth leaning closer to. Despite the grandeur of temples and the authority of rulers, what truly sustained Mesopotamian cities was this daily choreography, this almost invisible labor of ordinary people. Their hands shaped clay, harvested grain, herded animals, and prepared meals. Their steady devotion created the hum beneath the surface, the fabric strong enough to support kings and scribes. The twist, then, is this: History remembers names etched in stone, but life itself was carried on the shoulders of those whose names were never written. You and I, by paying attention to their mornings, are restoring balance, honoring the quiet foundations of civilization. Let's linger with the morning air a little longer. The sun, now lifting above the horizon, touches the upper edges of mud brick walls with gold. Birds stir in clusters of reeds, their calls mingling with the creak of wooden carts rolling slowly toward the fields. Farmers head out, carrying tools over shoulders, their tunics simple but practical against the day's coming heat. Children dart between alleys, laughing softly, chasing each other before being called back by mothers reminding them to eat their bread. In this moment, the city feels both immense and intimate, alive with thousands of small motions that together create something enduring. And as you breathe slowly, let yourself imagine the textures. The coolness of damp clay jars, the rough weave of reed mats, the faint dust stirred by early footsteps, the warmth of bread cradled fresh from the oven. These are not relics in glass cases, but sensations, as real now as they were then. Even if centuries separate you from this place, the essence is familiar. In a moment, I'll share how these families divided their meals, what they ate, and how taste itself connected them to the land. But for now, hold this scene steady in your mind. A city at dawn, not rushing, but unfolding gently like a woven cloth being laid across a table. And here comes that promise. Food. Because what could be more grounding than the meals that began their day? Barley was their companion grain, made into bread, into porridge, into beer both mild and sustaining. Dates hung heavy from palms, sweet enough to flavor stews or to be eaten fresh, a treat for children and adults alike. Lentils, onions, cucumbers, garlic, all grew in the fertile soils between the rivers. Imagine dipping warm bread into a dish of stewed beans, flavored with herbs from the garden, or sipping a drink that was both nourishment and ritual. These simple meals gave energy not just for labor, but for joy, for conversation, for survival itself. Stay with me here, because food is more than sustenance. It's memory. Every bite carried the river's gift, the land's labor, the household's care. And when families gathered, seated on low stools or mats, they were not only eating, they were affirming that they belonged to each other, that through shared bread, they were bound together. You can almost hear it, can't you? The quiet laughter, the clink of clay bowls, the soft sigh of satisfaction after a long sip of beer. These were the moments that anchored them, just as your own meals do for you. Now, as the city stirs into full wakefulness, let's step further. The streets grow busier, voices rise, merchants prepare stalls to market, but we will not rush into noise. We'll move gently, keeping our steps soft, as though we're guests drifting unnoticed among them. Because here's another twist, one that makes you lean closer. Not everyone in Mesopotamia was bound to the same rhythm. For scribes, the day began with styluses and clay, copying lists, calculating accounts, recording myths. For priests, it began with ritual, offerings of incense, chants to gods watching from unseen realms. And for laborers, it began with sweat, bending backs to fields and construction. Yet all of them, in their own ways, were linked by the same rising sun, the same shared bread, the same river water. Different paths, but one city. Pause here, and let your breathing match the cadence of this awakening. Inhale as though drawing the aroma of fresh bread. Exhale as though releasing dust into warm air. Feel how steady this rhythm is, how safe. Nothing in this story will jolt you or hurry you. It flows like the Tigris itself, sometimes swift, sometimes meandering, but always carrying you forward gently. And in a moment, I'll take you into the marketplace, where voices mingle and colors brighten. But before that, stay just here at the threshold of day, when the light has fully arrived but the heat has not yet pressed down. This is Mesopotamian dawn, and you are here with me, a friend beside you. No rush, no worry. Together we've entered the daily rhythm of life, and already you sense the closeness, the humanness, the familiarity. Bread baking, families stirring, neighbors greeting. This is the foundation of everything else that will follow in our journey. When you next close your eyes, perhaps you'll still hear the creak of carts and the call of morning birds, guiding you deeper into rest. And so we leave chapter 1 with the promise of chapter 2. where we'll walk softly into the marketplace itself, listening to the trades and tales, and watching how the lifeblood of the city moved through barter, laughter, and shared stories. But for now, keep the warmth of dawn with you, and let your breath remain steady as a river. The market is awake before the city fully realizes it, and you and I wander into it now as though drifting on a gentle current. Imagine narrow lanes opening into courtyards, awnings of woven reeds stretched across wooden poles to soften the sunlight, and the faint murmur of voices already carrying in the morning air. The marketplace in Mesopotamia is not a single square, not a loud clash of stalls, but a living weave of spaces where goods and people meet in quiet choreography. As we enter, we do not push forward or jostle. We walk slowly, calmly, as if carried by the breeze itself, our footsteps light, our eyes open, our breathing in rhythm with the cities. The scents arrive first, layered and complex, wrapping around you like an unseen fabric. Onions stacked in baskets exhale their sharpness, softened by the cool air of dawn. Dates, fresh and sticky, glisten in the slanting light, their sweetness mixing with the warmth of bread carried from ovens. Barley pours in a pale golden stream from an open sack, releasing the aroma of earth and sun. A merchant breaks a wheel of cheese, the tang rising above the subtler smells. And animals, ever-present companions, add their own notes. Sheep bleating, goats tugging at tether ropes, donkeys shifting restlessly as they wait for loads. It is not unpleasant. It is grounding. The smell of a community alive and bound together. The smell of survival transformed into comfort. Stay with me, because soon we will listen more closely to the sound that thread through this place. But for now, pause. Imagine yourself inhaling that layered air, the scents merging into one great note of life itself. Already, you are here, not as a visitor, but as a quiet guest of time. The market sound is not what you might expect. It does not rush or startle. Instead, it hums like a steady river. Barter is spoken in even tones, repetition creating rhythm. A farmer offers barley in a voice as measured as his planting. A woman counters with oil, her words soft but assured. The two lean closer, repeating, adjusting, weaving their sentences together until nods and faint smiles complete the bargain. Around them, the same ritual plays out again and again, not hurried, not forced, but steady as the turning of the seasons. If you listen closely, it is almost music. The rise and fall of voices blending with the shuffle of sandals, the creak of carts, the clink of jars. And here is a small twist to hold gently. The marketplace was never only about goods. It was also about stories. Every onion carried the story of soil and water. Every date held the memory of palms bending heavy with fruit. A woman selling honey spoke of bees thriving on blossoms, making the sweetness seem fuller. A man offering fish recalled the morning catch, the shimmer of scales against the sunrise. Words mattered as much as weights. Trust was not built in silence, but in narrative. So while trade might look like numbers, it was in fact persuasion, reassurance, and relationship. It was memory spoken into the present. Look with me at the goods displayed. Clay jars arranged in careful rows, their shapes familiar to every household. Some for water, some for oil, some for beer. Reed mats folded neatly, each tightly promising months of service. Wool dyed in muted tones, folded and stacked, soft to the hand. There are tools, bronze blades, wooden handles polished by work, lying ready for a farmer's grip. And tucked among them are objects less necessary but no less important. Charms molded from clay, amulets hung on strings, protective figures meant to keep away sickness or misfortune. These were sold not as luxuries but as quiet promises. To carry one was to carry a shield, invisible yet reassuring. In a moment, I will show you the scribes, sitting with clay tablets ready to mark these exchanges into history. But let's linger here first. Watch how hands move in the market. One hand lifts a jar, testing its weight. Another extends grain, pouring steadily into a measure. Fingers brush in passing as goods shift. Eyes meet briefly. Nods confirm trust. These movements are so small, yet they're the true architecture of society. Laws may be written in temples, but community is written here, in hands that pass goods from one to another. This is how a city breathes, through 1,000 unrecorded gestures of trust. Now here comes that promised detail, the scribes. Picture one seated cross-legged on a mat at the edge of the lane, stylus in hand, clay tablets stacked nearby, his hand at practice, his expression steady, his ears tuned to details. A wealthy merchant approaches, wishing to record a deal too important for memory alone. The scribe listens as barley and silver are measured out in words. Then his stylus begins to move, pressing marks into damp clay, each symbol neat, each line certain. The tablet is small, but it carries permanence. Once dried in the sun, it will outlast both merchant and scribe, bearing silent witness to the moment. And so writing itself, the great innovation of Mesopotamia, emerges here, not first from poetry or myth, but from trade. Commerce became memory. Memory became history. Breathe with me here. Imagine the rhythm of the stylus. Press, lift, press again. Feel how it matches the rhythm of your own breath. Inhale, exhale, steady, unbroken. History's beginning is not loud, not grand. It is as calm as this moment, as soft as your own presence in this story. We move further, toward the quieter edge of the market, where music sometimes drifts. A boy plucks a lyre, its strings humming softly, notes rising like gentle ripples. A man lifts a reed flute, blowing lightly, the sound mingling with the voices around him. Children gather, clapping hands in uneven rhythm, swaying with delight. Their parents smile faintly, still bargaining, but letting the music settle into their movements. These melodies are not performances to impress. They are companions to life, soft as a breeze, familiar as breath. Songs tell of gods and kings, yes, but also of harvests, of rivers, of the simple repetition of seasons. And the music soothes, reminding all who hear it that life continues, steady, unbroken. Pause with me again. Let your own breath fall into the music's rhythm. Picture yourself standing in shade, sunlight filtering through reed awnings, the coolness against your skin, the sound of lyres blending with voices. This is not a scene at distance. It is here in your senses now, as close as a blanket covering you, as intimate as your own breathing. But notice also the faces. Some are familiar, neighbors and kin. Others are strangers, their clothes different, their accents unfamiliar. These are travelers, merchants from afar. They bring lapis lazuli from mountains, shells from coasts, or from forests beyond the horizon. To stand in this market is to stand at the edge of the world, to see distant lands folded into baskets and jars. It is here, not in temples or palaces, that globalization first breeds, an unseen thread tying river valleys to oceans, mountains to plains. The marketplace becomes not only the city's center, but its window to infinity. Stay close now, for the chapter begins to fold itself gently to a close. You have walked these lanes slowly, inhaled the scent of onions and dates, listened to the murmur of barter, felt the press of styluses into clay, heard the soft rise of lyres in the air. The marketplace is not noise or confusion. It is rhythm, trust, and continuity. It is the hum of life itself. When you next close your eyes, perhaps you will still see the reed awnings above you, feel the weight of a clay jar in your hands, or hear the faint pluck of strings blending into the air. And as we step away, leaving the market behind us, a new promise waits. In Chapter 3, we will follow the farmers out to their fields beyond the city walls, where the soil and the rivers meet and where the lifeblood of the entire civilization begins. But for now, let the market's hum remain in your chest, steady, soothing, safe, carrying you deeper into rest. We leave the marketplace slowly, as though walking with a fading echo of lyres still playing behind us. The sound softens, the scent of dates and onions drift into memory, and our path carries us outward, beyond the busy heart of the city, where merchants trade and scribes press symbols into clay. Another rhythm waits, older, quieter, yet even more essential. This is the rhythm of the fields, where soil meets water, and where each season's work provides the lifeblood of the city itself. Tonight, or rather in this timeless journey, we will walk with the farmers of Mesopotamia, step by step, beneath the same sky that watched over them, and breathe with them as they bent their backs to the earth. The city walls fade behind us. The air feels different here, wider, more open, touched by breezes carrying the scent of reeds and damp earth. Paths wind outward, some marked by the grooves of carts, others softer, worn by footsteps alone. Ahead, irrigation canals branch like veins, narrow channels cut by human hands that pull life from the great rivers. And it is here, beside these canals, that we pause to notice something small yet profound. The water does not rush wildly, but flows in measured trickles, guided by gates and dikes. This, more than any temple or tablet, is the foundation of Mesopotamian life. The rivers gave abundance, but only with careful tending. Without the hands of farmers, the floods would drown the fields, and the droughts would starve them. Civilization in this land was born not from conquest, but from water guided into earth. Stay with me, because soon we'll follow a farmer through his morning tasks. But first, let's rest by the canal. Listen to the sound of water trickling over clay, steady, unhurried. Imagine dipping your hand into its coolness, feeling the silt slip between your fingers. The air is warm, the sun climbing higher, but the water carries relief. Along the banks, reeds sway gently, their rustle mixing with birdsong. Frogs croak faintly, a reminder that life gathers wherever water flows. You can almost hear it now, a lullaby of earth and river woven together. And now, we step into the field themselves. The land stretches outward, divided into neat rectangles by channels of water. Barley sways in pale gold, still tender in the morning sun. Wheat rises beside it, its stalks whispering in the breeze. Date palms stand tall, their fronds moving lazily, casting patches of shade. Farmers are already at work here, their movement slow but steady. One bends low, pressing seedlings into damp soil. Another guides water into a new channel, breaking a clay wall with a practiced touch of a hoe. A boy follows behind, carrying tools, his bare feet leaving prints in the mud. It is a scene of labor, yes, but also of calm. The fields are not frantic places. They are steady, patient, like the breathing of the earth itself. Here is a twist worth holding. When you imagine Mesopotamia, you may think first of kings, of armies, of temples rising against the sky. But the truth is gentler. More than 90% of people here were tied to the soil. They were farmers, shepherds, workers of land and water. Their names are not written on monuments, but their hands built the foundation that made cities possible. Every loaf of bread, every jar of beer, every offering laid at a temple's altar began here, in these fields. Power may have spoken loudly in palaces, but life whispered steadily in furrows of earth. Stay with me as we walk further. The farmer we follow now is guiding oxen, their broad shoulders moving slowly as they pull a plow through damp soil. The wooden plow is simple, its blade cutting shallow lines, but effective. Each furrow prepares the ground for seed, each line a promise of harvest. The man's tunic clings to his skin with sweat, but he works calmly, pausing now and then to rest his animals, to wipe his brow, to look at the sky. You can almost hear the steady breath of the oxen, the creak of wood, the soft squelch of mud beneath hooves. Together, they move forward, line by line, a pattern that has shaped human survival for millennia. And what are the farmer's thoughts? Perhaps he hums a fragment of a song, the kind his mother once sang. Perhaps he thinks of the jars waiting at home to be filled with grain. Or perhaps he simply works in silence, his mind as steady as his movements. In this, we see another truth. The rhythm of farming was also the rhythm of meditation. Hours of repeated motion, hours of breathing with the earth, hours where mind and body became one with soil and sun. Now, let's pause again to notice the crops themselves. Barley, the most faithful companion, grows thick and low, its stalks bending with heavy heads. Wheat, more delicate, sways taller, its golden glow promising bread finer than barley's dark loaves. Lentils push small green leaves upward, while onions, garlic, and cucumbers grow in neat rows closer to the canals. Date palms spread their shade, their fruit ripening slowly, offering sweetness in a land where sugar was unknown. Each plant carries not only nourishment but also culture, shaping meals, rituals, and even trade. And here's another small twist. Beer, that drink so tied to Mesopotamia, was not a luxury but a daily staple. Barley was brewed into a thick, nourishing drink, safer than water, richer than grain alone. Imagine farmers pausing in shade, dipping straws into a shared jar, sipping slowly, the cool liquid refreshing them as they rested. Beer was food, drink, and ritual combined. And in the fields, it was also companionship. A jar passed hand to hand was a bond as strong as any oath. Stay close. Feel the sun now higher on your shoulders, warm but not yet harsh. Hear the rustle of grain, the quiet hum of insects, the soft voices of farmers calling to one another. You are here among them, unseen yet present, a friend drifting through their day. Now, let us look to the shepherds at the field's edge. Flocks of sheep move slowly, their bleating rising and falling like waves. A boy walks among them, staff in hand, guiding them gently toward pasture. Sheep provide wool, milk, and sometimes meat. Their presence is vital as barley itself. Goats, too, wander in smaller groups, nibbling at shrubs, their nimble feet finding purchase on uneven ground. The shepherd's task is quiet, patient, filled with hours of watching, guiding, waiting. And yet, in that waiting there is peace. He leans on his staff, eyes scanning horizon and flock, while his thoughts drift like clouds overhead. Here is something worth remembering. Many of the earliest stories of gods and heroes in Mesopotamia were shaped by shepherds, by their long hours under stars, by their closeness to animals and silence. To guard sheep was not simply labor. It was also the birth of imagination. And so, even here at the edge of fields, history was being dreamed. Pause once more. Breathe deeply. Imagine yourself standing in the shade of a palm, looking out over swaying barley, listening to oxen, to water, to sheep. The city may seem distant, but in truth, it depends entirely on this moment, on this land, on this water. Without the farmer, the marketplace is empty. Without the shepherd, the temples fall silent. Civilization is rooted here in the mud beneath your feet. The day grows warmer now. Farmers gather their tools, rest briefly, share bread and beer. They sit on reed mats laid by the canals, their voices low, their laughter soft. Children run among them, splashing in water, chasing frogs, their joy unbroken by worry. And as they rest, you realize that life here is not only toil. It is also community, companionship, the reassurance of belonging. Stay with me to the very end of this day. As the sun lowers, the fields fall into shadow. The oxen are led back toward the city, their work done. Farmers carry tools over shoulders, their tunics damp but drying in evening air. The canals glisten in fading light. Frogs croak louder, birds settle into reeds. The horizon glows with the last warmth of sun, and the first stars appear above. The fields, once alive with movement, now breathe in silence, waiting for another dawn. And so we step back, carry with us the certainty that this, more than monuments, more than myths, was Mesopotamia's true heart. The soil, the water, the farmers, the shepherds. Their rhythm was a rhythm of life itself. When you close your eyes, perhaps you will still hear the oxen's breath, or see the shimmer of canals beneath the stars. And tomorrow, in Chapter 4, we will return to the city, stepping into the quiet courtyards of homes, exploring how families shaped their lives when work was done. But for now, let the fields rest within you, steady and calm, carrying you deeper into peace. The fields drift slowly into memory as we walk back toward the city, the scent of damp earth fading behind us, the soft croak of frogs lingering only faintly in our ears. The day has stretched onward, the sun climbing high and then beginning its slow descent, and now the time has come to step inside the homes of Mesopotamia, to see how families shape their hours beyond labor. If the fields were the heartbeat of survival, then the household was the heartbeat of comfort, of community, of the simple rituals that made each day feel whole. And tonight, as we wander into these quiet spaces, you may find that their rhythm feels strangely familiar, as if you've already lived a piece of it in your own life. We approach along narrow streets, the kind that weave like rivers between tall walls of mud brick. The houses here are close together, their outer walls plain, with few openings toward the street. Privacy was important, and so the beauty and life of each household is turned inward, toward its courtyard. You and I pause at one such doorway. It is not grand, only a simple wooden frame fitted into brick, but as we step through, the world shifts. The noise of the street softens. The air grows cooler. Inside, a courtyard opens around us, bright with light from the sky above, shaded at its edges with reed mats hung carefully to block the sun. This is the heart of the home. Stay with me here, because in a moment we will walk deeper into its rooms. But first, notice how much of life happens right here, in this open courtyard. Children play with clay figurines, their laughter echoing gently against the walls. A mother kneels by a grinding stone, pressing barley beneath her hands, the sound of stone against grain steady and soothing. A father repairs a tool, his knife moving carefully across wood. A pot simmers on a small clay hearth, sending up the aroma of lentils and herbs. Around the edges of the courtyard, jars stand sealed, storing water, oil, and beer. It is a space alive with tasks, but the tasks themselves are calming, unhurried, as familiar to them as brushing your hand along a blanket is to you. Now let us step softly into one of the rooms. The doorway is low, the walls thick. Inside, the air is cool, the floor covered in reed mats. Light filters in through small openings high on the wall, slanting down in golden beams. Against one wall stands a bed frame of wood, covered with woven mats and layered with blankets of wool. It looks simple yet inviting. Nearby, shelves hold clay vessels, each one with a purpose. Some for storing grain, some for holding water, others for precious spices or herbs. The room is not cluttered, but every object speaks of use, of care, of life carefully ordered. Here is a twist worth noticing. While kings built palaces and temples with towering walls, most people lived in homes no larger than what you see here, modest, practical, and inwardly focused. And yet, within these walls, life was rich, layered with meals, stories, songs, and rituals. The true strength of Mesopotamia did not rest only in stone monuments, but in these small, repeated acts of daily living. Every loaf of bread baked, every blanket woven, every story told by lamplight was a brick in the unseen foundation of civilization. Stay close, because soon we will watch how families gathered at evening. But for now, let us linger on the simple textures of home. The feel of cool clay underfoot, the softness of reed mats, the faint crackle of firewood in the hearth. A jug of water lifted, heavy and cool. A wooden spoon stirring a pot, the aroma of lentils thickening into stew. These are not relics locked behind glass. They are sensations, as close and real as your own memories of home. As the day folds toward evening, the courtyard fills with the glow of oil lamps. Their flames are small, flickering gently, their smoke curling upward in faint wisps. Families gather close to this light, seating themselves on mats, bowls laid before them. Bread is passed from hand to hand. Stew is ladled carefully. Beer, brewed thick and nourishing, is poured into jars, and long straws are used to drink together, each sip shared as both sustenance and ritual. Conversation flows softly, laughter at a child's mischief, murmured plans for tomorrow, quiet reflections on the day's work. The air is warm, filled with companionship, and you, sitting invisibly among them, feel welcomed by the glow of their presence. And here comes another twist, one you might not expect. The Mesopotamian household was not only a private retreat, but also a sacred space. Small altars often stood in the corners of rooms, holding figurines of protective spirits or household gods. Before meals, families might murmur small prayers, not elaborate rituals, but gestures of gratitude and hope. These acts were quiet yet constant, weaving faith into daily life. The temple may have been the city's great spiritual center, but devotion lived just as much in these modest homes. Now, imagine the sound of a story told at night. A father, or perhaps an elder, begins to speak, his voice low and steady, carrying through the lamplight. The children lean closer, their eyes wide, their bodies wrapped in wool blankets. The story may be of God's great deeds, or of a flood long ago, or perhaps of a fox and a crow, in a fable meant to teach wisdom. The tale is not rushed. Each pause allows the listeners to breathe, to dream, to picture the images in their minds. And here you realize something remarkable. The very act of storytelling, the very rhythm that soothes you now, is as old as these homes. Across thousands of years, voices have spoken into the night to comfort, to teach, to bind families together. Pause here and breathe with me. Picture the lamp's flame flickering, the clay walls glowing warm, the steady voice of a story washing over you. Notice how safe it feels, how timeless. Nothing startles here, nothing demands. Only the flow of words, the reassurance of family, the gentle promise of sleep waiting nearby. Later, when the bowls are emptied and the lamps burn low, the household prepares for rest. Mats are spread, blankets pulled close, children nestle together. The faint sounds of the city beyond the walls. Distant footsteps, the call of an owl, the whisper of wind, become lullabies. Sleep comes not suddenly but gradually, like water filling a vessel. And you, too, feel it now, the calm weight of night settling over you. Yet before you drift entirely, let me share one final detail. In Mesopotamian homes, dreams were not seen as random. They were often believed to be messages, glimpses from gods or spirits. A strange dream might be discussed in the morning, interpreted for its meaning, woven into decisions about the day ahead. Sleep, then, was not only rest but also mystery, a passage to another realm. Imagine that as you close your own eyes tonight, that your dreams might carry whispers as old as rivers, as enduring as clay. And so, the household rests. The courtyard lies quiet, the lamps extinguished, the stars above casting faint light into the open sky above. Life continues, but more slowly now, folded into sleep. When morning comes, the grinding stones will sound again, the ovens will glow, the fields will call. But tonight belongs to rest, to story, to dream. And as we step gently away, we carry the warmth of this home with us, the certainty that behind the walls of cities and palaces, the true heart of Mesopotamia beat in spaces like these. In Chapter 5, we will step beyond family walls again, into the temples that rose above the city, vast and towering, places where heaven and earth were believed to touch. But for now, let the lamp's glow fade softly, the voices fall silent, and your breath match the rhythm of sleep. We have walked through the marketplace, we have stood among the fields, and we have sat quietly inside the courtyards of family homes. Now, slowly and with steady breath, we turn our steps toward the most visible shapes of Mesopotamian cities, the structures that rose above walls and streets, visible for miles across the flat land. The temples. These were not places to visit casually. They were considered the homes of gods on earth, the meeting points where heaven leaned down to touch soil. And yet, for all their grandeur, the temples were also woven into the fabric of daily life. They were centers of worship, yes, but also of learning, of economy, of community. Tonight, we will walk softly through their gates, not as intruders, but as gentle observers, taking in their rhythm, their presence, their quiet gravity. The temple rises slowly into view as we move along the street. Its walls are made of sun-dried brick, thick and strong, coated sometimes with plaster that glows pale in the sunlight. The structure is not sharp or glittering, but solid, heavy, reassuring. At its heart is a ziggurat, a stepped tower climbing upward, tier by tier, toward the sky. Each level carries its own walls, its own spaces, its own symbols, until finally, at the top, a small shrine waits, an earthly seat for the god the temple honors. For those who lived in Mesopotamia, this was not simply architecture. It was a ladder between worlds. Stay close, because in a moment we will climb these steps together in imagination. But first, pause at the base where life gathers. Priests move quietly in their robes, some carrying vessels of water, others bringing offerings of bread or fruit. Incense rises in thin trails, curling in the air, its scent sweet but not overpowering. A small group of children stand near the gate, watching with wide eyes, whispering among themselves. Farmers bring baskets of grain, merchants jars of oil, craftsmen small tokens of their skill. The temple, you see, is not only a place of worship, but also a storehouse, a treasury, a hub of giving and receiving. Offerings here sustain both the gods and the city's poor. The temple breathes not only with prayer, but with life itself. Now let's climb together. The steps are wide but steady, their surfaces worn smooth by countless feet. With each rise, the noise of the street fades, replaced by the whisper of wind. The higher we climb, the more the city spreads out below us. Narrow streets, courtyards, fields beyond the walls, and further still the glimmer of the river winding through reeds. At last we reach the top where the shrine itself waits. It is small compared to the tower, but its presence is powerful. Inside, a statue of the god stands, carved with care, adorned with offerings of flowers, bread, and light. For those who enter, it is not stone they see, but a living presence. To step here is to step into the gaze of eternity. Here is a twist worth carrying gently. Temples were not only about gods above, but also about the rhythms of the people below. They were the first banks, holding grain and silver entrusted to the gods. They were the first schools, where scribes learned their craft under priestly supervision. They were centers of healing, where prayers and remedies mingled. They were observatories, where priests watched the sky, marking the movement of stars and planets, weaving calendars that guided planting and festivals. So when you picture a temple, do not see only a holy place. See also the heartbeat of a city's knowledge and survival. Stay with me as we pause in this upper chamber. Imagine the light of oil lamps flickering against the walls, the scent of incense still lingering, the silence broken only by the low murmur of prayer. The priests move with slow, careful gestures, tending the statue as though tending to a living guest. They wash it, dress it, lay food before it. These acts may seem symbolic to us, but to them, they were necessary. The god was here, truly present, and hospitality was owed. And in this, we glimpse another truth. Worship was not about distance, but about intimacy, about caring for divine presence, as one would care for a cherished friend. Breathe with me. Inhale the faint sweetness of incense. Exhale the warmth of lamplight. Imagine your own hands placing bread on a small altar, not as a grand gesture, but as a simple act of gratitude. This is how religion lived in Mesopotamia. Not in thunder or fear, but in repeated, gentle acts of care. Let us now descend slowly, step by step, back into the courtyard below. Here, the temple's daily life continues. Scribes sit cross-legged, recording offerings on clay tablets. They mark how many jars of oil, how many measures of grain, how many sheep have been given. Each entry is precise, each line pressed into clay with the weight of permanence. These records are not dry lists. They are echoes of devotion, of community giving. Through them, the temple becomes not only a holy place, but also the city's storehouse, its archive, its center of memory. And now, another twist. The temples were among the first employers. Farmers worked in temple fields. Shepherds tended temple flocks. Craftsmen built and maintained temple structures. Payment often came in the form of rations, barley, beer, wool, oil. To work for the temple was not only to serve the gods, but also to find stability in uncertain times. The temple's reach extended into every corner of life. Pause again with me. Imagine the sounds of this courtyard. The scratch of styluses in the clay, the rustle of grain being poured, the low murmur of voices in prayer. It is not overwhelming. It is layered, steady, like the hum of bees, like the breath of the city itself. As evening approaches, festivals sometimes fill these spaces with more vivid life. Imagine a procession moving through the streets, priests carrying statues of gods on platforms, people lining the roads, singing softly, offering flowers and bread. Music floats in the air, drums beating gently, flutes weaving melody. At the temple, offerings are piled high, fires burn steadily, and prayers rise into the sky. These festivals are not loud spectacles, but woven rituals, moments when a whole city feels gathered under the gaze of heaven. Now, let us sit at the edge of the temple courtyard as dusk settles. The ziggurat looms above, its steps glowing in the last light of the sun. The city below begins to soften, shadows lengthening across rooftops. Oil lamps flicker to life in windows and courtyards. The river gleams faintly in the distance. And above, the first stars appear, their patterns carefully noted by priests, their meanings woven into the city's rhythm of planting and prayer. Stay close as we breathe here together. The temple is not only stone and brick. It is presence, ritual, memory, and care. It stands as a reminder that Mesopotamia's greatness was not only in fields or families, but also in a way they saw connection to what lay beyond themselves. And so, chapter 5 closes with this thought. Temples were ladders between earth and sky, yes, but they were also roots binding people to each other, to community, to rhythm. When you close your eyes tonight, perhaps you will still see the ziggurat rising against the stars, or smell incense curling softly upward. And in chapter 6, we will walk further into the spiritual life, exploring how myths and stories shaped the way Mesopotamians understood the world. But for now, let the temple fade into the night, its lamps glowing faintly, its silence carrying you gently deeper into rest. We leave the temple behind us, its incense still faint in our memory, its ziggurat glowing faintly against the deepening sky. Yet as the evening grows heavier, another layer of Mesopotamian life unfolds. Beyond the rituals of offerings and the weight of clay tablets, beyond the flickering of oil lamps in courtyards, lies something quieter but even more enduring. The stories. Myths, epics, and tales whispered in the night were not merely entertainment. They were the frame through which Mesopotamians understood their world. And tonight, we step softly into that frame, not to analyze or dissect, but to sit among them, as a guest by the hearth, listening as ancient voices wove the patterns of gods and heroes into the fabric of daily life. Picture the scene. A family gathers in their courtyard, the meal finished, the lamps glowing low. Children curl against their mother's lap, their eyes heavy but alert for the promise of a story. The father begins, his voice steady, resonant, carrying words older than his own childhood. In the beginning, he might say, when the world was without shape, when only the waters moved, the great God stirred, and just like that, the household is transported. The clay walls become the edge of a cosmic ocean. The stars overhead flicker as if alive with divine intention. It is not escape they seek, but explanation, a way to hold mystery with tenderness. Stay with me, because soon we will wander through the epic of Gilgamesh, the flood myths, and the gentle wisdom of fables. But first, pause here and notice how stories lived in this world. They were not locked in books, not silent on shelves. They were living breath, passed from mouth to ear, shaped by rhythm, softened by tone. They were companions for sleep, teachers for children, comfort for the weary, guidance for the uncertain. To tell a story was to bind a household together, to fold imagination into memory, to carry wisdom across generations. And in that sense, the stories you hear tonight are not relics. They are threads still woven into the fabric of your own listening. Now, let us drift into the epic of Gilgamesh, perhaps the most famous of Mesopotamian tales. It begins not with thunder, but with a king, strong yet restless, who sought meaning beyond power. Gilgamesh, ruler of Uruk, was said to be 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, a man whose strength was unmatched yet whose heart longed for more. At first, he was proud, oppressive, demanding, but the gods, in their wisdom, created a companion for him, Enkidu, wild as the steppes, clothed in hair, living with animals. When the two met, they fought, their strength clashing like storm against river. And yet, from that clash arose friendship, deep, binding, transformative. Pause and breathe with me here. Notice how the story whispers a truth that feels familiar even now. That companionship softens power. That friendship can tame the wild and temper the proud. This is not just myth. It is wisdom. It is comfort. The tale continues, telling how Gilgamesh and Enkidu journeyed together, fighting monsters, seeking glory, testing themselves against the world. Yet when Enkidu died, struck down by the will of the gods, Gilgamesh was undone. He wandered in grief, desperate to escape death, searching for the secret of eternal life. He crossed seas, climbed mountains, found Utnapishtim, the survivor of the great flood, who told him that immortality belonged only to the gods. And in the end, Gilgamesh returned to Uruk, not with eternal life, but with a deeper truth. That meaning lay not in escaping death, but in the works we leave behind, the walls we build, the stories we tell. Stay close, because here is a twist. This epic, carved in the clay thousands of years ago, carries the same question that lingers in your own quiet moments. What does it mean to live well? How do we face mortality with grace? Gilgamesh answers not with despair, but with reassurance. We are not meant to last forever, but the love we give, the care we show, the stories we carry, these endure. And isn't it the same comfort you seek tonight as you lie under your blanket, listening, knowing that your breath joins a rhythm older than memory? Now, let us turn to another story, one both familiar and surprising, the flood. Long before it appeared in later traditions, Mesopotamians told of waters rising, of gods deciding to cleanse the earth, of one man chosen to build a boat and save life. His name was Utnapishtim. He gathered his family, his animals, and provisions. He sealed his vessel with pitch, and when the storm came, it raged for days, waters swallowing land and city alike. When it finally subsided, his boat rested on a mountain. He released birds, first a dove, then a swallow, then a raven, to see if the land had dried. The raven did not return, and Utnapishtim knew the earth was ready. The gods, moved by his obedience, granted him and his wife eternal life, though no others would share the gift. Pause again. Notice the rhythm of the story. It is not a tale of fear, but a survival, of renewal, of resilience. For Mesopotamians, living between rivers that could flood without warning, such a story was not myth alone. It was memory shaped into comfort, a way of saying, even when waters rise, life continues. Even when destruction comes, rebirth follows. It was not despair, but reassurance, a lullaby carried on the current of time. Now let us drift into smaller tales, those fables and proverbs that fill daily speech. A fox and a crow quarrel. A wolf outwits a lamb. A farmer learns patience from his neighbor. These stories are short, light, often humorous, yet they carry wisdom sharp as a stylus. The one who plants early will eat early, one proverb said. The one who digs a ditch for others may fall into it himself, said another. Such sayings slipped easily into conversation, teaching without harshness, guiding without demand. Imagine hearing them at night, spoken softly by a parent, half warning, half comfort. Even now, you may feel their wisdom settling around you like a familiar blanket. Stay with me here, because soon we will see how stories were not only spoken but carved into clay. But first, let's pause again in the courtyard, watching as a child drifts towards sleep while a story flows over them. The lamp flickers. The walls glow. The voice continues, steady as a river. There is no rush, no urgency. Only the promise that the world is shaped by meaning, by pattern, by story. And now, let us step softly into scribal schools, where stories became writing. A boy sits cross-legged with a tablet of clay before him, stylus in hand. His teacher recites lines from an epic, and the boy presses each sign into clay, one by one, his hand steady, his brow furrowed. The tablet will dry, carrying the words into permanence. In this way, myths became not only breath, but stone. They crossed from moment into eternity. And because of this, we hear them still tonight, long after their tellers laid down to rest. Imagine the sound of styluses pressing into clay, like rain tapping gently on a roof. Imagine the rows of tablets stacked carefully, stored in temple libraries, their surfaces crowded with the lines of Gilgamesh, the flood, the hymns to gods, the fables of animals. These were not just records. They were vessels, carrying voices across millennia, reaching your ears now as though no time had passed at all. And here's the twist to carry with you into sleep. The same rhythm you feel tonight, the same comfort of stories spoken in darkness, was felt by those in Mesopotamia thousands of years ago. A child curled against their parent, a farmer resting after a long day, a scribe leaning over a tablet by lamplight. All listened, all dreamed, all found comfort in the same human need for story. We are bound to them not by monuments, but by this act of listening, of imagining, of finding safety in words. So as the night deepens, let us sit quietly by the lamplight one more time. The story may be finished, but the silence that follows is just as full. The stars above watch steadily. The air is warm. The blanket of history covers you. Tomorrow new tasks will come, fields, markets, temples. But tonight belongs a story to rest, to dream. And in Chapter 7, we will step into those dreams more directly, exploring how Mesopotamians understood the stars themselves, how they looked upward and found meaning in the sky. But for now, let the last words of Gilgamesh, of Utnapishtim, of fox and crow, Fade gently, breathe slowly, rest easily, and carry with you the certainty that you are part of the same long story, still unfolding with every breath. The lamps of the temple and the courtyards have dimmed now, and the city lies mostly in shadow. Yet above, the heavens open in a vast tapestry, more brilliant than anything that glows on the earth. The Mesopotamians looked upward often, not just with eyes of wonder, but with minds that search for meaning, for messages, for reassurance in the quiet expanse of the night sky. Tonight, let us lie back with them, on the flat roof of a mud brick home, wrapped in a wool blanket, feeling the cool air against our skin, and gaze upward together at the stars as they would have done. The roof is warm still from the day's sun, but it cools quickly under the clear sky. You can hear faint sounds from the street below, perhaps a donkey shifting, perhaps a last voice calling out, but they are distant, muffled. Up here, the world belongs to silence and to stars, and they are everywhere, scattered like grains of barley across black soil, each one sharp, steady, almost close enough to touch. The river reflects them faintly, winding like a dark ribbon of mirrored light beyond the city walls. It is no wonder that people here believe the heavens were alive with power. When you lie beneath a sky like this, you feel the same pull, the same sense that above you is not emptiness, but a realm filled with presence. Stay with me, because soon we will speak of the great constellations they named, the way they tracked the planets, the calendars they built. But for now, let's simply breathe with them. Inhale as you look upward. Exhale as your eyes move slowly from one star to the next. There is no hurry. The stars do not rush, and neither should we. The priests who studied the skies in Mesopotamia were called watchers. They climbed temple towers at night, standing in silence as they marked the movements of stars and planets. They were patient observers, noting where Venus rose, how Jupiter moved, when eclipses shadowed the moon. Their records, pressed into clay tablets, became some of the first astronomy in human history. But for the Mesopotamians, astronomy and astrology were not separate. To watch the heavens was also to listen for the voices of gods, for signs of what might come. A bright star rising in a certain place might signal abundance. A strange eclipse might warn a change. The sky was a text, and the watchers were its readers. Imagine one such priest now, standing on the ziggurat of Uar, wrapped in a long robe against the night air. He looks upward, his hand steady as he lifts a clay tablet to record his marks. His stylus moves carefully, each sign small but precise. Around him, the city sleeps, but he is awake with the stars. And perhaps as he works, he feels what you feel now, that the silence of night is not empty but full of whispers and signs, full of presence. Here is a twist worth holding gently. While they believed the heavens spoke messages, they also discovered patterns. By watching for years, then decades, then centuries, Mesopotamian priests began to predict. They knew when Venus would rise, when the moon would wax and wane, when the floods might come. They were building not only myth but science, not only prophecy but calendar. And so, the same sky gave both comfort of story and guidance of knowledge. Isn't that the same balance you feel now, between dreaming and knowing, between imagination and memory? Stay close, because in a moment we will walk through the constellations they named. But first, let's imagine lying on the roof again, a child perhaps curled beside a parent, asking softly, "What is that star?" And that one. The parent answers with names, the bull of heaven, the lion, the scorpion. Each name carries not only shape but story. The sky becomes a tapestry of myths, a reminder that above us is not chaos but order filled with meaning. Now, look with me at the constellations they knew. The bull of heaven, strong and radiant, tied to tales of Gilgamesh. The lion, fierce and protective, a guardian in the sky. The scorpion, whose sting marked danger, rising just before dawn at certain seasons. The great twins, figures who held companionship in their form. To Mesopotamians, these were not abstract arrangements of stars. They were gods, heroes, creatures alive above, and to lie beneath them was to lie beneath story itself, written across the heavens. And what of the planets? They watched them too, the wandering stars that moved differently from the rest. Venus, bright and steady, was tied to Inanna, goddess of love and war. Mars, red and restless, carried omens of conflict. Jupiter, slow and grand, was seen as a sign of kingship and authority. Mercury, quick and elusive, was linked to wisdom and speech. Saturn, dim and steady, marked boundaries and endings. To track these planets was not idle curiosity. It was guidance, reassurance, a way of understanding the hidden movements of life. Pause with me here. Imagine Venus rising in the east, bright and clear just before dawn. Imagine the priest marking her path, whispering prayers, telling farmers when to plant, telling kings when to wait or act. The sky became a map of time, a guide for life, as steady as the flowing rivers below. And even now, as you breathe beneath your own night sky, you feel that same comfort. The stars move in rhythm, and rhythm brings reassurance. Dreams, too, were tied to the heavens. A strange dream might be explained by the position of stars. A bright vision of light might be traced to Venus. A troubling dream might be soothed by rituals guided by lunar cycles. Sleep itself was seen as a journey into the same realm as the night sky, a place where God spoke softly, where messages arrived in whispers. And so, as you drift deeper now, your own dreams become part of that same ancient rhythm, a continuation of listening to the night. Stay with me for one last vision. Picture the ziggurat under stars, its steps glowing faintly in moonlight. A priest looks upward, his tablet filled with marks. A child lies on a rooftop, pointing with wonder. A farmer wakes early, guided by the calendar the stars provide. Each life, different and distant, connected by the same sky. And you, lying under your blanket now, are connected too, part of the same endless gaze upward. And so Chapter 7 closes gently, with the night sky as both mirror and teacher. When you close your eyes, perhaps you will still see Venus rising, or the bull of heaven, or the steady glow of Jupiter. And in Chapter 8, we will turn our gaze downward again, into the earth itself, into the clay and the crafts that shape daily life. But for now, let the stars remain above you, steady and bright, carrying you deeper into rest. The lamps of the temple and the courtyards have dimmed now, and the city lies mostly in shadow. Yet above, the heavens open in a vast tapestry, more brilliant than anything that glows on the earth. The Mesopotamians looked upward often, not just with eyes of wonder, but with minds that search for meaning, for messages, for reassurance in the quiet expanse of the night sky. Tonight, let us lie back with them, on the flat roof of a mud brick home, wrapped in a wool blanket, feeling the cool air against our skin, and gaze upward together at the stars as they would have done. The roof is warm still from the day's sun, but it cools quickly under the clear sky. You can hear faint sounds from the street below, perhaps a donkey shifting, perhaps a last voice calling out, but they are distant, muffled. Up here, the world belongs to silence and to stars. And they are everywhere, scattered like grains of barley across black soil, each one sharp, steady, almost close enough to touch. The river reflects them faintly, winding like a dark ribbon of mirrored light beyond the city walls. It is no wonder that people here believe the heavens were alive with power. When you lie beneath a sky like this, you feel the same pull, the same sense that above you is not emptiness, but a realm filled with presence. Stay with me, because soon we will speak of the great constellations they named, the way they tracked the planets, the calendars they built. But for now, let's simply breathe with them. Inhale as you look upward. Exhale as your eyes move slowly from one star to the next. There is no hurry. The stars do not rush, and neither should we. The priests who studied the skies in Mesopotamia were called watchers. They climbed temple towers at night, standing in silence as they marked the movements of stars and planets. They were patient observers, noting where Venus rose, how Jupiter moved, when eclipses shadowed the moon. Their records, pressed into clay tablets, became some of the first astronomy in human history. But for the Mesopotamians, astronomy and astrology were not separate. To watch the heavens was also to listen for the voices of gods, for signs of what might come. A bright star rising in a certain place might signal abundance. A strange eclipse might warn a change. The sky was a text, and the watchers were its readers. Imagine one such priest now, standing on the ziggurat of wrapped in a long robe against the night air. He looks upward, his hand steady as he lifts a clay tablet to record his marks. His stylus moves carefully, each sign small but precise. Around him, the city sleeps, but he is awake, awake with the stars. And perhaps as he works, he feels what you feel now, that the silence of night is not empty but full of whispers and signs, full of presence. Here is a twist worth holding gently. While they believed the heavens spoke messages, they also discovered patterns. By watching for years, then decades, then centuries, Mesopotamian priests began to predict. They knew when Venus would rise, when the moon would wax and wane, when the floods might come. They were building not only myth but science, not only prophecy but calendar. And so, the same sky gave both comfort of story and guidance of knowledge. Isn't that the same balance you feel now, between dreaming and knowing, between imagination and memory? Stay close, because in a moment we will walk through the constellations they named. But first, let's imagine lying on the roof again, a child perhaps curled beside a parent, asking softly, "What is that star?" And that one. The parent answers with names, the bull of heaven, the lion, the scorpion. Each name carries not only shape but story. The sky becomes a tapestry of myths, a reminder that above us is not chaos but order filled with meaning. Now, look with me at the constellations they knew. The bull of heaven, strong and radiant, tied to tales of Gilgamesh. The lion, fierce and protective, a guardian in the sky. The scorpion, whose sting marked danger, rising just before dawn at certain seasons. The great twins, figures who held companionship in their form. To Mesopotamians, these were not abstract arrangements of stars. They were gods, heroes, creatures alive above, and to lie beneath them was to lie beneath story itself, written across the heavens. And what of the planets? They watched them too, the wandering stars that moved differently from the rest. Venus, bright and steady, was tied to Inanna, goddess of love and war. Mars, red and restless, carried omens of conflict. Jupiter, slow and grand, was seen as a sign of kingship and authority. Mercury, quick and elusive, was linked to wisdom and speech. Saturn, dim and steady, marked boundaries and endings. To track these planets was not idle curiosity. It was guidance, reassurance, a way of understanding the hidden movements of life. Pause with me here. Imagine Venus rising in the east, bright and clear just before dawn. Imagine the priests marking her path, whispering prayers, telling farmers when to plant, telling kings when to wait or act. The sky became a map of time, a guide for life, as steady as the flowing rivers below. And even now, as you breathe beneath your own night sky, you feel that same comfort. The stars move in rhythm, and rhythm brings reassurance. Dreams, too, were tied to the heavens. A strange dream might be explained by the position of stars. A bright vision of light might be traced to Venus. A troubling dream might be soothed by rituals guided by lunar cycles. Sleep itself was seen as a journey into the same realm as the night sky, a place where God spoke softly, where messages arrived in whispers. And so, as you drift deeper now, your own dreams become part of that same ancient rhythm, a continuation of listening to the night. Stay with me for one last vision. Picture the ziggurat under stars, its steps glowing faintly in moonlight. A priest looks upward, his tablet filled with marks. A child lies on a rooftop, pointing with wonder. A farmer wakes early, guided by the calendar the stars provide. Each life, different and distant, connected by the same sky. And you, lying under your blanket now, are connected too, part of the same endless gaze upward. And so Chapter 7 closes gently, with the night sky as both mirror and teacher. When you close your eyes, perhaps you will still see Venus rising, or the bull of heaven, or the steady glow of Jupiter. And in Chapter 8, we will turn our gaze downward again, into the earth itself, into the clay and the crafts that shape daily life. But for now, let the stars remain above you, steady and bright, carrying you deeper into rest. The clay dust of the potter's workshop still lingers faintly in the air of memory, but now we move into a world softer to the touch, quieter in rhythm, woven not from earth but from the fibers of animals and plants. If clay gave Mesopotamia its permanence, wool and linen gave it warmth, beauty, and identity. Tonight, we step slowly into the weaver's courtyard, where threads are stretched taut on looms, where women sit with baskets of wool in their laps, and where garments emerge in steady patterns of hand and rhythm. The air here is filled with texture. Wool, freshly sheared, smells faintly of lanolin, earthy and warm. Linen fibers, drawn from flax, are smoother, carrying the scent of water and reed. The sound is gentle. The creak of wooden looms, the softest of fibers being pulled, the whisper thread moving through thread. Weaving is not a noisy craft. It is steady, repetitive, like the rhythm of a lullaby. To stand here is to feel time itself slow, each moment stretched into patience, into creation. Stay close, because soon we will watch as garments take form, as tunics and cloaks and headdresses emerge from these threads. But first, pause here and notice the simple beauty of process. A woman sits cross-legged, her spindle turning between her fingers. Wool, once raw and tangled, is drawn into fine strands, twisting tighter as the spindle spins. The motion is hypnotic. Pull, twist, spin. Pull, twist, spin. Her lips move silently, perhaps humming a tune, perhaps whispering a prayer. Her child plays nearby with a small ball of discarded fiber, rolling it across the mat. This is not grand spectacle. It is intimacy, the intimacy of hands shaping the very fabric of life. And here is a twist worth holding gently. In Mesopotamia, weaving was more than craft. It was economy, religion, and art combined. Temples owned flocks of sheep and employed teams of women to spin and weave cloth, which became offerings for gods, payments for workers, goods for trade. A single tunic might be carried across deserts, exchanged for lapis lazuli or cedar wood. Cloth was wealth, portable and practical. To weave was to participate in the very breath of society, tying home to temple, city to faraway lands. Now, let's walk closer to the loom. It stands tall, its wooden frame steady, its threads stretched tightly from top to bottom. The weaver passes a shuttle through the threads, then beats them gently into place. Each motion is deliberate, repeated hundreds of times, until the cloth grows, inch by inch, a patient miracle. Imagine watching the colors slowly emerge. We'll dye with plant roots into deep reds, with indigo into blues, with crushed shells into pale purples. The patterns are simple but elegant. Stripes, bands, sometimes small geometric shapes. Each one reflects both utility and beauty. The tunic that results will be plain enough for daily use, yet rich enough to show care, to bring pride to its wearer. Pause here. Imagine running your hand across the cloth. Feel the ridges of woven thread, the softness of wool, the faint coarseness of linen. These are not museum relics. They are textures against skin, comfort in cool nights, protection under the sun. You can almost feel it now, as though a woolen cloak were draped across your own shoulders, heavy but warm, grounding you in this ancient rhythm. What did people wear in Mesopotamia? For men, tunics of wool or linen, belted at the waist, often with fringes along the edges. For women, longer dresses, draped and folded, adorned sometimes with shawls or veils. Children wore simpler versions, smaller but made with the same care. The wealthy might add jewelry, beads of lapis lazuli, bands of gold, shells polished smooth. The poor wore plain cloth, undyed, unadorned, yet no less essential. Clothing was not only necessity, but identity. To dress was to declare belonging, status, devotion. Stay with me, because in a moment we will step into the temple storerooms where vast supplies of cloth were kept. But first, notice the smaller details of home. In the courtyard, after weaving, women sit together sewing hems, repairing tiers, embroidering small designs. Children watch, learning, their small hands eager to imitate. A tunic passes from hand to hand, growing sturdier with each stitch. Their companionship in this labor, laughter shared, gossip exchanged, songs sung softly. To weave and sew was not lonely work. It was social, communal, binding lives together as tightly as the threads themselves. Now, let us wander into the temple stores. Imagine a vast room lined with shelves, jars of oil and grain stacked to one side, and piles of folded cloth stacked neatly on the other. The cloth is carefully counted, recorded on tablets, distributed to workers, offered to gods. Priests supervise. Scribes record. Workers carry bundles on their shoulders. The air smells of wool, of cedar chests, of oil lamps burning steadily. Here, cloth becomes currency, its value measured as carefully as silver or grain. It is not only garment but gift, not only covering but exchange. Here's another twist. Mesopotamia may be remembered for its writing and architecture, but textiles were equally powerful in shaping its influence. Traders carried Mesopotamian cloth across regions, and foreign styles returned with them, weaving cultures together. A pattern developed in one city might appear hundreds of miles away, carried not by soldiers but by merchants, not by conquest but by thread. In this way, weaving connected people far beyond the rivers, spreading patterns, colors, and meanings across lands. Pause again and breathe with me. Imagine the sound of looms echoing faintly through the city, the steady beat of shuttles, the soft hum of voices. It is like a heartbeat, quiet yet constant, weaving not only cloth but the rhythm of society itself. And yet, weaving also carried spiritual meaning. In myths, the goddess Inanna was said to wear robes of great beauty, woven with the colors of the heavens, shimmering with power. Priests wore special garments during rituals, their cloth dyed and embroidered to reflect divine presence. Even burial shrouds carried meaning, wrapping bodies not only for protection but for passage into the next life. Cloth was not simply utility. It was symbol, memory, devotion. Let us step again into the courtyard at dusk. The loom is quiet now, the shuttle set aside, the fibers gathered into baskets. Families sit together, their garments freshly washed, soft against their skin. Oil lamps glow, casting warm light across wool and linen. A child leans against her mother, tugging gently at the fringe of her shawl. The air is filled with comfort, not grandeur, but the reassurance of belonging. And you, sitting invisibly among them, feel the same warmth, the same intimacy, as if a shawl were wrapped around your own shoulders, holding you close. Stay with me as we drift towards sleep in this chapter. Weaving, like story, is repetition, rhythm, pattern. It soothes by its constancy, reassures by its patience. Each thread finds its place. Each line builds upon the last, until something whole emerges, strong, beautiful, enduring. And so it is with life itself. When you close your eyes tonight, perhaps you will feel the brush of wool against your skin, or hear the faint creak of a loom in motion, or see the shimmer cloth dyed with the colors of earth and sky. Let that image stay with you, gentle and grounding. For in Chapter 10, we will step further into the world of food and flavor, exploring the meals that fill these homes, the bread, the beer, the dates, the herbs. But for now, let the loom fall silent, the threads rest, the cloth lie folded, carrying you deeper into the softness of sleep. The sound of the loom has faded, its shuttle resting, its threads quiet. Evening drifts softly through the courtyards of Mesopotamia, and as lamps are lit one by one, another rhythm calls families together, the rhythm of meals. For as much as clay and cloth built their lives, it was food that sustained them, flavored their days, and carried them gently into night. Tonight, we step into their kitchens, not kitchens as we know them, but open courtyards, hearths, clay ovens, reed mats spread low to the ground. We step into the scent of baking bread, the warmth of simmering stews, the sweetness of dates, and the comfort of shared meals. Imagine walking slowly through a narrow alley in Ur or Babylon at dusk. The air is filled with layers of scent. Smoke from small fires, roasting meat from a nearby stall, the tang of beer fermenting in jars, the sweetness of figs being dried in baskets. You hear the clatter of clay bowls, the laughter of children, the low murmur of families gathering. There is no hurry, no rush. The day's labor has ended, and now comes a time of nourishment, of companionship, of rest. Stay close, because soon we will taste bread warm from the oven, sip beer thick and sweet, and dip dates into honey. But first, let's pause at the heart of it all, the hearth. In most homes, it was a simple fire pit or clay oven, set in the courtyard, shielded from wind by walls of mud brick. Women knelt nearby, tending fires with reeds, their hands busy with dough, with pots, with bowls. The fire crackles softly, not loud, a steady companion to the murmurs around it. The warmth is comforting, especially as night air grows cooler. This is the center of the home, the center of daily life. What did they eat here? At the foundation was bread. Barley was a grain of Mesopotamia, grown in wide fields, carried to mills, ground into flour. The flour was mixed with water, sometimes with oil, kneaded patiently, then shaped into flat rounds. Some were baked directly on hot stones, others in clay ovens, others buried beneath hot coals. When they emerged, they smelled rich and nutty, their crust crisp, their center soft. Children reached eagerly, breaking pieces, dipping them into stews, savoring the simple goodness. Bread was not only food. It was symbol, daily reassurance, the taste of life itself. Pause here. Imagine tearing a piece of warm bread, the steam rising faintly, the texture soft in your hand. Imagine dipping it into a stew of lentils and herbs, the flavors earthy and rich, the warmth filling you from within. You do not need to hurry. Each bite is slow, grounding, gentle. Alongside bread, beer was another constant. But it was not beer as you know it today. Mesopotamian beer was thick, made from barley bread fermented in water, flavored with dates or honey. It was cloudy, nourishing, more food than drink. People sipped it through straws to avoid the floating husks, leaning together around a shared jar. In taverns, groups gathered at long tables, the air filled with laughter, the straws bobbing in large communal pots. Beer was social, binding, a drink of workers and kings alike. Imagine sipping it slowly now, sweet and earthy, its coolness soothing after the day's heat. Stay with me, because soon we'll explore the richer meals of the wealthy. But first, notice the humbler dishes. Lentil stews simmered with onions and garlic, their scent rich and comforting. Cucumbers sliced and salted. Turnips boiled until soft. Herbs sprinkled gently. Coriander, cumin, mint. Dates pressed into cakes. Figs dried in the sun. Nuts cracked open and shared. Fish drawn from rivers, salted or roasted on skewers. Each dish simple, yet each one carrying the flavor of place, the rhythm of season, the patience of preparation. Now step with me into a market earlier in the day. Imagine stalls of food, baskets of barley and wheat, heaps of onions, piles of cucumbers, jars of oil, dates stacked high in shining clusters. The air is alive with calls, vendors praising their goods, children tugging at mothers' hands, animals braying in the background. A woman selects dates, their skins wrinkled but sweet, their centers soft and rich. A man measures oil carefully, pouring golden liquid into a jar. Coins clink, bargains are spoken, laughter drifts between stalls. And from here, all of this food makes its way back to homes, back to temples, back to courtyards where it will be transformed into meals. Here is a twist. Food in Mesopotamia was not only nourishment but also offering. In temples, priests prepared banquets for gods, placing bread, beer, meat, and sweets on altars. The gods did not eat them physically, but their presence was honored, their favor sought through these gifts. Afterward, the food might be distributed to temple staff, or to the poor, or to workers. So each meal carried double meaning. It fed the body, and it connected the eater to the divine. To eat was to participate in something larger than hunger. Now imagine a wealthy household. Their table, more like a reed mat spread with bowls, is filled with richer foods. Roast lamb seasoned with garlic and coriander, goose stuffed with herbs, fish stews thickened with barley, bread flavored with honey, sweet cakes of dates and butter, wine imported from distant lands, poured into clay goblets. Musicians play softly in the background, the sound of lyres mingling with the clink of bowls. Guests recline, their garments rich, their laughter easy. The air smells of spice, of roasting meat, of oil lamps burning steadily. This is luxury, yes, but also community, the gathering of friends and allies in joy. Pause again. Feel the warmth of this room, the richness of its scents, the comfort of voices joined in ease. Imagine yourself a guest here, reclining on a cushion, accepting bread from a servant's hand, sipping slowly from a cool goblet. You are part of this world, if only in imagination, and the welcome is genuine. But food was not only for feasting. It carried memories and traditions. Farmers knew which seeds to plant, which seasons to sow, which floods to expect. Women knew which herbs healed, which combinations soothed. Recipes, though not written as we know them, were passed down through practice, through hands teaching hands. A daughter learned to bake bread by watching her mother's fingers knead. A boy learned to brew beer by standing near his father's jar. In this way, meals became memory, continuity, comfort. Stay close, because now we will step into the temple kitchens, where scale and ritual transformed food into something sacred. Imagine vast hearths, rows of ovens, jars of oil lined against the wall. Women knead dough for hundreds of loaves, their hands moving quickly but precisely. Servants carry baskets of dates, trays of fish, bundles of herbs. Priests oversee, murmuring prayers as each dish is prepared. The food is arranged carefully, set upon altars, lamps burning nearby. Silence falls as offerings are made, the air filled with incense and smoke. The gods are honored, the people reassured. Food here is more than substance. It is devotion, binding heaven and earth. And yet, after the rituals, the food is eaten, shared, distributed, nothing wasted. This cycle of offering and sharing reminds us that food, like story, like cloth, is communal. It is never only one person's, but always many people's, always binding lives together. Pause one final time here. Imagine the taste of a date, sweet and soft, dissolving on your tongue. Imagine the warmth of barley bread in your hand. Imagine the coolness of beer as you sip slowly, the earthiness of lentils, the sharpness of onion, the freshness of cucumber. These are not exotic or unreachable. They are simple, human, grounding. They carry the same comfort now as they did then. And so, chapter 10 closes gently with this thought. Food was not only survival in Mesopotamia. It was community, offering memory and joy. It was a daily rhythm that reassured, the taste that lingered, the comfort that closed each day. And in chapter 11, we will step from kitchens into celebrations, exploring festivals, music, and the ways people lifted their hearts in joy. But for now, let the bread rest in your hands, the beer cool on your lips, the sweetness of dates linger on your tongue, carrying you softly deeper into rest. The hearth is cooled, the bread has been eaten, the clay bowls are stacked neatly along the wall. Night in the courtyard is quiet, filled with the hum of insects and the distant sound of a dog barking at the city's edge. Yet there are times when the stillness of ordinary evenings gives way to something brighter, more vibrant, more communal. Festivals. For the people of Mesopotamia, life was not only labor and rest, but also celebration, moments when entire cities turned outward, when music filled the air, when joy became as essential as bread. Tonight, let us step gently into one of those festivals, not rushing, not startled, but drifting softly through the sights and sounds of collective joy. Picture dawn breaking over the city of Uar. Already, the streets stir with movement unlike any other day. Families dress in their finest garments, freshly washed wool, tunics adorned with fringes, women wearing necklaces of beads, men adjusting belts and headdresses. Children tug eagerly at their parents' hands, their eyes wide with anticipation. The air itself feels different, charged with expectation, filled with sense of roasting meat, incense rising from temple courtyards, flowers woven into garlands. This is no ordinary day. This is a festival day, when the boundary between daily life and divine presence feels thinner, lighter, easier to cross. Stay close, because soon we will join the procession, listen to the instruments, and sit at feasting tables. But first, pause here at the temple steps. The ziggurat towers above, its edges glowing golden in the early sun. Priests in bright garments ascend slowly, carrying offerings, baskets of bread, jars of beer, bowls of dates, cuts of meat roasted and ready. Their movements are deliberate, solemn, yet behind them the crowd hums with excitement. Music begins faintly, lyres plucked in steady rhythm, flutes trilling softly, drums sounding like distant thunder. The people fall into step, their voices rising together in chants, not harsh but steady, like waves moving in rhythm with the instruments. And here's a twist to hold gently. While we might imagine festivals as noisy or overwhelming, in Mesopotamia they often carried both joy and reverence, blending laughter with devotion, music with prayer. They were not escapes from life, but affirmations of it, ways of weaving the sacred into the ordinary. To walk in a procession was not only to honor a god, it was to remind yourself that you belonged to a community, that you moved in rhythm with others, that you were part of something larger than yourself. Now, let us drift through the festival of the New Year, the Akitu. This was one of the grandest, celebrated especially in Babylon. For days, the city prepared. Statues of gods were cleansed, clothed in fresh garments, carried in procession from temples to shrines. Fields were blessed, seeds scattered, prayers whispered for fertility and abundance. The king himself took part, humble before the high priest, confessing his failures, seeking renewal. Imagine the crowd gathering along the streets, their faces lifted as the statues pass, shining in gold and precious fabrics. Imagine the chants rising, the drums steady, the air thick with incense and devotion. For the people, this was more than ritual. It was renewal, reassurance that the year ahead would carry them, that the gods still walked among them. Pause here. Feel the rhythm of the drums in your chest, not loud, not frightening, but steady, grounding, like a heartbeat. Imagine the scent of incense in the air, sweet and smoky, wrapping around you like a soft veil. This is not chaos. It is calm within movement, stillness within sound. And now, let us wander to the feasting. After processions and prayers, families gather to eat. Courtyards are filled with the scent of roasting lamb, fish grilled over open fires, bread baked fresh, beer flowing in shared jars. Neighbors sit side by side, laughter mingling with the clink of bowls, children chasing each other through the crowd. A musician plucks a lyre nearby, its sound gentle, golden, weaving to the hum of voices. The feast is not hurried. It stretches into evening, into night, a slow unfolding of joy. Imagine yourself seated here, a bowl in your hand, warm bread on your lap, the sound of music drifting around you like a soft blanket. You're not an outsider. You are welcome, part of this rhythm. Stay with me, because soon we will move closer to musicians. But first, notice the way joy in Mesopotamia was not hidden. It was shared. Music was not for a few, but for all. Food was not only for the wealthy, but for the community. Laughter did not belong to one household, but to the city entire. Festivals were collective dreams, where everyone, from king to child, stepped into the same flow of time together. Now let us listen more closely. The instruments of Mesopotamia were simple but rich in sound. The lyre, its strings plucked softly, fill the air with a golden hum. Flutes carved from reeds whisper high notes, like birds singing above the crowd. Drums, covered in stretched skins, beat low and steady, grounding the music, guiding the steps of dancers. Sistrums rattled gently, adding shimmer and texture. Together, they created not noise but harmony, a layered sound that carried both energy and calm. Imagine standing near a group of musicians now. A man leans into his lyre, his fingers moving with practiced ease. A woman raises a flute to her lips, her breath steady, her tone clear. A boy taps a drum, his rhythm simple but sure. Around them, dancers move in slow steps, arms lifted, bodies swaying gently. The music is not rushed, not urgent. It flows like a river, carrying all who listen into its current. Pause here. Close your eyes for a moment, and imagine hearing that music not as distant history, but as present sound. The strings hum, the flutes rise, the drums steady, the voices chant. It is ancient, yes, but it is also timeless, echoing the same desire for beauty, for togetherness, for comfort. And here's another twist. Music was not only for festivals. It was part of daily life, sung while working in fields, hummed while weaving at looms, played softly in courtyards at night. Lullabies carried children into sleep, their rhythms gentle, their words simple blessings. Hymns honored God in temples, their tones rising with incense. Love songs drifted in markets, playful, teasing. Music was not set apart. It was woven into the fabric of life, as natural as breathing. Now, return with me to the festival evening. The sun has set, but lamps glow everywhere, lining streets, flickering in courtyards, burning steadily on temple steps. The air is filled with warmth, warmth of fire, warmth of food, warmth of voices raised together. The crowd moves more slowly now, not in procession, but in lingering conversation, in laughter, in music that softens as night deepens. Children grow sleepy, their heads resting against parents' shoulders. Elders smile quietly, remembering past festivals. Seeing the pattern continue, there is a sense of safety here, of belonging, of joy carried gently into night. Pause one last time here. Imagine yourself sitting at the edge of this gathering, wrapped in a shawl, watching the glow of lamps, listening to the hum of voices, the distant pluck of a lyre. You are at rest, not needing to move, not needing to speak, only to breathe, to listen, to belong. And so, chapter 11 closes with this thought. Festivals and music in Mesopotamia were not distractions, but affirmations. They reminded people of their gods, their neighbors, their joy. They brought rhythm to the year, harmony to the community, warmth to the night. And in chapter 12, we will step more deeply into love and family, into the bond that held people close in both ordinary and extraordinary times. But for now, let the music linger, let the lamps glow, let the joy settle softly into your heart, carrying you deeper into rest. The music of the festival still lingers faintly in the air, the memory of lyres and drums soft as a fading dream. But as dawn breaks again over Quiet City, the streets return to their ordinary rhythms. Bakers tending ovens, children running through alleys, herders guiding sheep out to graze. And within these rhythms lies something deeper, more enduring than any feast or song, the bonds of love and family. Tonight, we step gently into that most intimate of spaces, where husbands and wives share courtyards, where parents cradle children, where friendships become kinships, and where the quiet devotion of ordinary lives weaves a fabric just as strong as temples and palaces. Imagine a small house on the edge of UR, its walls of mud brick warmed by the morning sun. The doorway opens into a courtyard, where a young couple sits side by side. The man repairs a clay jar, his hand steady as he smooths the crack with bitumen. The woman spins wool on her spindle, the thread tightening slowly, twisting into strength. They do not speak much. There is no need. Their silence is companionable, filled with the unspoken ease of familiarity. A pot simmers on a hearth nearby, releasing the scent of lentils and onions. A child toddles across the courtyard, giggling as she clutches a wooden toy in her small hand. The couple's eyes meet, soft and steady, and in that glance lies love, not dramatic, not loud, but enduring. Stay close, because soon we will walk through rituals of marriage, through lullabies sung to children, through the bonds that held families together. But first, pause here and notice the texture of this ordinary moment. Love in Mesopotamia was not only celebrated in myths of gods and heroes, it was lived in courtyards like this, in the quiet exchange of work, in the gentle care of children, in the small rituals that repeated each day. Marriage in Mesopotamia was both personal and communal. Families arranged unions, negotiating dowries, exchanging gifts, sealing promises. Yet within these arrangements, affection could grow, tenderness could bloom. Clay tablets record contract of marriage, lists of obligations, rights, property. But behind those contracts lay real people, real hearts, seeking companionship. A bride might arrive at her husband's home carrying a chest of linen, jewelry, and cooking vessels. A groom might offer silver, livestock, or land in return. These exchanges ensured stability. But what sustained the marriage afterward was the daily rhythm of shared life. And here is a twist worth holding gently. While love poetry survives from Mesopotamia, filled with longing and passion, it was not written only for gods or kings. Ordinary people also felt that same yearning, that same tenderness. In hymns to Inanna and Dumuzi, the goddess and her shepherd lover, we hear the voices of lovers across time. He has captivated me with his beauty. One poem says, "My heart is full of joy." These are not cold contracts, but warm confessions, proof that even in ancient times, love was not only duty but delight. Now, let us drift into the world of family life. Imagine the courtyard again in evening, when work is done and lamps are lit. Children play, their laughter echoing against the walls. A mother hums softly as she nurses her baby, her voice low, soothing, steady. A father teaches his son to shape clay, guiding his hands gently. Grandparents sit nearby, their stories flowing like rivers, telling of past harvests, past festivals, past generations. The family is not only one household, but extended, layers of kin bound together in memory and care. In such spaces, safety was found, identity rooted, life given meaning. Pause here. Imagine yourself as a child in this courtyard, lying on a woven mat, the night air warm, the sound of your mother's lullaby carrying you toward sleep. The words may be unfamiliar, but the tone is universal, soft, protective, filled with love. You breathe slower, deeper, held by her voice. Even across millennia, you can feel the same comfort, the same reassurance. Marriage rituals themselves were simple but meaningful. A contract would be written on clay, witnessed by families and neighbors, sealed with promises. The bride and groom might share a meal together, bread and beer, marking the start of their shared life. Priests blessed unions in temples, asking gods for fertility, prosperity, and harmony. The community celebrated, for marriage was not private, but woven into the fabric of society. Yet within these public gestures, private devotion took root. The quiet joy of companionship, the shared laughter of daily tasks, the comfort of lying side by side at night beneath woolen blankets. Stay with me, because soon we will step into the poetry of love. But first, notice how children grew within these bonds. They were treasured, their births celebrated with gifts, their lives guided with patience. Fathers taught trades, farming, pottery, writing. Mothers taught weaving, cooking, song. Children carried small clay tablets to scribal schools, their hands learning the press of stylus into clay. Others learned to tend animals, to gather herbs, to prepare meals. In this way, love was practical, expressed not only in words but in teaching, in guiding, in preparing the next generation to carry the same rhythms forward. Now, let us listen to a love poem from that time, written for Nana and Dumuzi, but echoing the voices of human lovers too. Imagine it spoken softly in a courtyard at night, a man whispering to the beloved, "You are honey in my mouth, milk on my lips. Your embrace is joy, your touch is life." These words, carved in cuneiform, are as intimate as any love song sung today. They remind us that passion and tenderness are not modern inventions, but ancient companions, carried in human hearts since the first stories were told. Pause here. Let yourself feel that tenderness, not as a rush of passion, but as a gentle warmth, like a lamp's glow against dark walls, like a blanket wrapped around your shoulders. Love, at its deepest, is not noise but stillness, not drama but peace. And here's another twist. While families were built on bonds of blood and marriage, friendship also held great power. The Epic of Gilgamesh reminds us of this, of how Gilgamesh and Enkidu found each other a bond stronger than fear, stronger than pride. Their companionship changed them, softened them, taught them. Friendship, too, was a form of love, a reminder that devotion takes many forms, all of them grounding, all of them necessary. As the night deepens, imagine once more the courtyard of our small household. The family has eaten. The children are sleepy. The grandparents have told their stories. The couple lies side by side, the woolen blanket pulled close, the baby nestled between them. The air is quiet, filled only with the hum of insects, the distant bark of a dog, the faint murmur of river water flowing beyond the walls. This is love, not carved in stone, not sung by kings, but live in the ordinary rhythm of breath, of touch, of presence. Pause one last time here. Imagine yourself lying among them, part of this family, held in the same warmth, the same safety. You are not outside of history. You are within it, carried by the same bonds that carried them, softened by the same tenderness, reassured by the same love. And so, chapter 12 closes gently with this thought. Love in Mesopotamia was both grand and ordinary, both celebrated in poetry and lived in courtyards. It was marriage sealed by contracts, yes, but also laughter shared over bread, lullabies sung in the dark, hands joined in work and rest. It was a bond that held families together, the warmth that carried them through festivals and fields alike. And in chapter 13, we will turn our gaze, education, and knowledge to the ways wisdom was taught and remembered. But for now, let love be the last word tonight. Quiet, steady, wrapping you as softly as a woolen shawl, carrying you deeper into rest. The courtyard where families rest is quiet now, the embers of the hearth fading into soft glow. Children sleep, wrapped in woven blankets, their dreams filled with songs and the laughter of the day. But as dawn returns and the city stirs, some of those same children rise not to tend fields or gather water, but to step into a different rhythm, one of inkless writing, of clay and stylus, of words pressed into permanence. In Mesopotamia, education was a privilege, a path carved for few, yet it shaped the course of civilization. Tonight, let us walk gently into the schools of the scribes, into the cool courtyards where boys bent over tablets, into the halls where teachers recited lines of law and poetry, into the patient spaces where knowledge was made to endure. Imagine a narrow street in the heart of UR, its mud brick walls warm from the morning sun. At the end of the street stands a house larger than most, its doorway open, the sound of voices drifting out. Inside, a group of boys sit cross-legged on reed mats, each with a small square of clay in his lap. In his hand, a stylus of reed, its tip cut at an angle. Before him, the clay is soft, damp, waiting. At the front, a teacher recites in steady rhythm, his voice deep, deliberate, each word repeated slowly. The boys press their styluses into clay, wedge after wedge, forming the shapes of cuneiform. The air is filled with tapping, like rain on roof tiles, steady and patient. This is the Adaba, the tablet house, the school of scribes. Stay close, because soon we will step deeper into this room. Hear the lessons, feel the rhythm of learning. But first, pause here and notice how intimate this act is. To write is to press oneself into clay, to leave a mark that will endure beyond the breath. The boys do not yet know it, but their tablets may outlast their lives, buried and forgotten, only to be uncovered thousands of years later. Their hands are shaping not only words but history. And here is a twist worth holding gently. While writing began for practical reasons, record of grain, account of trade, it soon became much more. With writing came law, poetry, wisdom, memory. What began as tally marks grew into the Epic of Gilgamesh, into proverbs whispered at night, into hymns carved for gods. The scribes, often children of the elite, became guardians of this memory. To be a scribe was to hold power, not of sword but of word, not of wealth but of record. And in Mesopotamia, words were weighty enough to shape kingdoms. Now, step closer to the boys in the Adaba. One struggles with his stylus, his signs uneven. His teacher walks slowly among them, glancing down, correcting gently. Another boy writes quickly, his signs sharp and precise, his pride showing in his straight back. The tablet's filled with lists at first, lists of signs, of words, of phrases. Then come laws, copied word for word. Then poems, their rhythm steady, their images rich. Education here is not wide but deep, focused on repetition, on mastery of form, on memorization. Knowledge is pressed into the mind as firmly as the stylus presses into clay. Pause here. Imagine yourself sitting among them, a tablet cool in your lap, a stylus resting between your fingers. You press gently, leaving a wedge-shaped mark. Another, then another, slowly. The lines grow into meaning. The sound of clay yields under your touch, and with it, the satisfaction of making something that will last. You breathe slower, steadier, carried by the rhythm of practice. Stay with me, because soon we will explore what scribes did beyond school. But first, notice the shape of learning itself. Lessons were recited aloud, over and over, until they were memorized. Boys learned not only to write, but to calculate, to measure, to recite proverbs. They learned laws, Hammurabi's code, with its long list of rules and punishments. They learned hymns to gods, to be spoken in temples. They learned contracts for land, for marriage, for trade. Education here was not abstract. It was practical, rooted in the needs of the city, the rhythms of society. Now, let us follow a boy who has become a man, a scribe in the service of a temple. He sits in a cool chamber, shelves of tablets stacked neatly around him. A priest dictates grain accounts. How many measures were harvested? How many distributed? How many stored? The scribe listens carefully, his stylus moving quickly, each mark precise. His work ensures fairness, accountability, memory. Another day, he writes contracts for a marriage, listing dowries, obligations, blessings. Another day, he copies hymns for a festival, pressing words that will be sung aloud to gods. Each act is small, but together they form the scaffolding of civilization. And here's another twist. While kings built palaces and armies, their power endured only because scribes recorded it. Without writing, laws faded, treaties dissolved, offerings forgotten. With writing, memory held steady. Scribes, though often invisible, carried the weight of continuity. They were the keepers of what lasted. Pause again. Imagine the cool stillness of a tablet room, rows upon rows of clay blocks, their surfaces crowded with signs. The air smells faintly of earth and oil lamps. You run your fingers across a tablet, feeling the ridges of cuneiform beneath your touch. Each ridge is a word, each word a voice, each voice a lifelong past, yet somehow still present. This is not only archive, it is resurrection, memory alive in clay. Now, let us turn to wisdom texts, another part of scribal work. These were collections of proverbs, sayings, lessons meant to guide life. Do not speak arrogantly to your superior. One warns, he may crush you like a clay pot. Friendship lasts a day. Kinship lasts forever. Another counsels. Imagine a teacher reciting these, his students repeating them in unison. Their voice is steady. These were not abstract philosophies, but gentle reminders, shaping character, guiding choices, offering comfort. Even now, as you hear them, you may feel the same guidance settling softly around you, like a hand on your shoulder. Stay with me, because soon we will step into libraries, but first, notice how personal education was. A boy might struggle with signs, might be punished for mistakes, might sigh with frustration, yet he persevered, guided by his teacher, supported by his peers. In this struggle lay resilience, patience, devotion. Learning was not easy, but it was meaningful. And in that struggle, they carried forward the wisdom of their world. Now, let us walk into one of the great libraries of Mesopotamia, perhaps the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh, though later than our focus, still echoing the same tradition. Shelves rise along walls, stacked with tablets, tens of thousands, covering history, law, medicine, astronomy, poetry. Imagine the weight of that room, the hum of silence, the presence of so many voices. Scholars move quietly, lifting tablets, reading aloud, copying carefully. The air is thick with memory, alive with wisdom. To stand here is to feel the continuity of centuries, the assurance that nothing is lost, that everything is preserved. Pause here. Imagine yourself standing in that library, the cool clay beneath your fingers, the lamplight flickering on rows of tablets. You are surrounded not by silence, but by whispers, the voices of thousands, speaking still. And here's a final twist. While education was reserved for few, its effects spread to all. Farmers benefited when records guided irrigation. Merchants thrived when contracts secured trade. Families felt stability when laws were recorded and enforced. Though not everyone could write, everyone lived within the web of words scribes wove. In this way, education, though rare, touched every life. As night falls once more over our city, imagine a young scribe leaving Idubba, his hands still stained with clay. He walks through streets lined with lamps, past families gathered in courtyards, past markets grown quiet. He feels the weight of his tablets in a bag over his shoulder. He does not know how far they will travel, how long they will endure. He only knows that tomorrow he will sit again, stylus in hand, pressing meaning into clay. And in doing so, he presses himself into time, into history, into the same long story that now reaches you. Pause one last time. Imagine yourself as that scribe, tablet in lap, stylus in hand, lamplight glowing softly nearby. Each mark you press is both small and vast, fleeting and eternal. You breathe slowly, steadily, carried by the rhythm of learning, of memory, of words made into clay. And so, Chapter 13 closes gently with this thought. Education in Mesopotamia was not only skill, but continuity, not only learning but memory, not only record but reassurance. It carried laws, stories, wisdom, and dreams into permanence. And in Chapter 14, we will step outward again into the rhythms of work beyond temples and schools, into fields, into trades, into the daily labors that sustain this civilization. But for now, let the tablet rest in your lap, the stylus fall from your hand, the marks already pressed carrying you gently deeper into rest. The stylus rests now, the clay tablets stacked neatly on shelves, their wedge-shaped signs cooling in quiet. Knowledge has been preserved, wisdom impressed into permanence. Yet knowledge alone could not sustain Mesopotamian life. For that, hands and bodies were needed, strong, patient, unhurried hands. Tonight, we will step into the world of work, where men and women bent to their tasks, where sweat mingled with river water, where tools tapped against stone, where markets hummed with barter. We will walk gently among them, not to hurry their labor, but to feel its rhythm, its dignity, its enduring calm. Picture the land between rivers at dawn. The fields stretch wide, their furrows dark and damp from irrigation canals that glisten faintly in the light. Farmers stand among them, bare feet pressed into the soft earth, their hands steady on wooden plows pulled by oxen. The animals move slowly, heads bowed, the soil turning beneath them in heavy clumps. Behind, another farmer scatters seeds, his arms sweeping in even arcs, the grain falling like golden rain into the furrows. Birds circle overhead, calling softly, swooping down to steal kernels when they can. Yet the farmers laugh, shooing them away, their voices carrying across the quiet land. Stay close, because soon we will step into canals, into the building of walls, into the hum of markets. But first, pause here in the field. Notice the pace. There is no haste. The oxen plod steadily. The plow creaks. The seeds fall. Farming here is not a moment, but a season, not a race, but a cycle. The farmers' bodies move with that same patience, shaped by years of practice, by rhythms older than memory. As you watch, your own breath slows, your heart steady, your body settling into the same cycle. And here is a twist worth holding gently. Though kings ruled and temples towered, it was the farmers who fed the land. Their work, quiet and unseen, carried the weight of civilization. Without their grain, no priest could sing hymns, no scribe could press tablets, no king could raise armies. The power of Mesopotamia lay not only in palaces, but in furrows, in seeds, in bread. Now, step into the irrigation canals. These were lifelines, carved from rivers, carrying water to the fields. Men waded into the mud, their shovels scraping, their muscles straining as they dug channels, repaired embankments, built gates to control the flow. Children carried baskets of earth, their laughter mixing with the splash of water. The sun climbed higher, the air warming. Yet the work continued, steady and unbroken. Imagine the feel of mud cool beneath your feet, water trickling around your ankles, the scent of wet earth rising. Irrigation was labor, yes, but also gift. Without it, the fields dried. With it, they thrived, turning the desert into abundance. Pause here. Imagine the sound of flowing water, soft and constant, a lullaby against the hum of voices. Imagine the shimmer of sunlight on ripples, the coolness of canal against the heat of the day. Work here does not exhaust. It grounds, it reassures, it ties people to land. Stay with me, because soon we will enter the world of builders. But first, follow me to the threshing floor, where harvested grain is spread in wide circles. Oxen trample it slowly, their hooves breaking the husks, their breaths steaming in the afternoon air. Men gather the grain, tossing it into the breeze, letting the chaff blow away, the kernels falling heavy to the ground. The sound is steady, oxen breathing, grain rustling, baskets filling. It is work, yes, but it is also ritual, repeated each year, known by heart, carried with patience. Now, step softly into the city where builders labor. Walls rise slowly from clay bricks, each one pressed in a wooden mold, dried in the sun, carried by hand. Men lift them onto scaffolds, laying them in rows, smoothing them with bitumen. The air smells of earth and tar, warm and thick. Hammers tap, voices call, sweat glistens on foreheads. Houses take shape, courtyards enclosed, temples rise higher. Imagine watching a ziggurat grow, step by step, each layer built by countless hands, each brick placed with care. The work is heavy, but the rhythm is steady, and the result endures. Pause again. Feel the weight of a clay brick in your hand, rough against your skin, solid and grounding. Imagine placing it into a wall, pressing it into mortar, stepping back to see it fit into the pattern. One brick among thousands, yet necessary. One act among many, yet meaningful. Work here is not isolated. It is shared, communal, joined into something larger than one life. Now, let us wander to the markets, where another kind of work hums. Merchants sit behind stalls, their tables spread with goods. Jars of oil, baskets of dates, bolts of cloth, small carvings of clay and stone. The air is alive with voices, with the calls of sellers, the bargaining of buyers, the laughter of children running between stalls. Donkeys bray, their packs heavy with goods from distant lands. Spices scent the air, coriander, cumin, garlic. Coins clink, hands exchange, promises are spoken. Here, work is trade, negotiation, movement. The market is a heart, pumping goods and voices through the city. Pause here. Imagine yourself walking through this market slowly, your hand brushing against baskets of grain, your nose filled with the scent of herbs, your ears soothed by the hum of voices. You are not hurried. You are wandering, present, open. The market carries not chaos but harmony, the harmony of many lives joining into one hum. And here's another twist. Labor in Mesopotamia was not only necessity, it was identity. To farm, to build, to trade, to weave, each role gave meaning, belonging. Work was not always ease, but it was purpose, and within that purpose lay reassurance. A farmer knew his grain would feed the city. A potter knew his jars would carry water. A scribe knew his words would endure. Each life mattered, not alone, but within the fabric of all. Stay with me, because now we will visit the shepherds, those who work beyond city walls. Imagine the open steppe, grass waving in the wind, flocks of sheep grazing slowly. A shepherd stands nearby, staff in hand, his dog at his side. He watches the horizon, his eyes alert, yet his body calm. He knows his flock, each one by sight, their movements, their sounds. At night, he lights a small fire, lies beneath the stars, listens to the bleating of sheep, the rustle of wind. His work is solitude, yet not loneliness. It is companionship with animals, with land, with sky. Pause here. Imagine lying beside that shepherd, the stars brilliant above, the fire crackling softly, the sheep murmuring around you. The world feels vast, but you feel safe, held by rhythm, by presence, by the constancy of life. Now, let us step once more into the temple, where labor takes another form. Priests and priestesses sweep floors, polish statues, prepare offerings. Musicians practice hymns. Scribes record rituals. Cooks prepare meals for gods and workers alike. The temple is not only prayer but work, each task carried with devotion, each action a form of service. Labor here is sacred, as much offering as bread or incense. Pause one last time here. Imagine carrying a small broom, sweeping the temple floor, the scent of incense rising, the lamplight glowing. The act is simple, but it is holy. Work here becomes prayer, grounding body and spirit alike. And so, chapter 14 closes gently with this thought. Work in Mesopotamia was not only toil. It was rhythm, identity, offering. It carried lives forward, sustained cities, honored gods, shaped memory. It was not glamorous, but it was enduring, meaningful, steady. And in chapter 15, we will move into the realm of law and order, exploring how people sought fairness, justice, and stability in their lives. But for now, let the hum of markets, the plod of oxen, the tap of bricks, the whisper of flutes in temples fade gently. Breathe slowly, rest deeply, carried by the same rhythm of labor that carried Mesopotamia itself. The sun has set over the fields, and the sound of oxen has faded into silence. The markets are empty, their stalls closed, the echoes of barter replaced by the quiet of night. Yet within the stillness of the city, another rhythm continues. The rhythm of rules, of laws, of agreements that shape life as firmly as clay walls shape courtyards. Tonight, let us step softly into the world of justice in Mesopotamia, where kings carved decrees in stone, where scribes pressed contracts into clay, where ordinary people sought fairness in their dealings. Not loud, not violent, but steady, reassuring, a framework of trust that held lives together. Imagine walking through the streets of Babylon in late afternoon. The city is alive with voices, the smell of bread rising from ovens, the murmur of families gathering in courtyards. Yet on a broad plaza near the temple, people gather not for feasting but for guidance. At the center stands a tall stone stele, its surface carved with lines upon lines of wedge-shaped script. At its top, a king is shown receiving laws from the god Shamash, the sun god, bringer of justice. This is Hammurabi's Code, one of the most famous collections of laws in history. The people do not read it directly. Few could, but they know what it represents. Fairness, order, reassurance that their lives are not left to chance. Stay close, because soon we will walk through these laws, listen to contracts spoken aloud, and step into courtrooms where disputes were settled. But first, pause here at the stele. Imagine the sunlight falling across its stone surface, the signs carved deep, their shadows clear. This is not just stone. It is promise. Promise that wrongs will be addressed, that fairness will be sought, that life will not dissolve into chaos. And here is a twist worth holding gently. While we often hear Hammurabi's Code described as harsh, an eye for an eye, it was also protective. It offered rules for widows and orphans, for farmers and merchants, for servants and masters. It sought to limit vengeance, to replace endless feuds with measured outcomes. Justice here was not perfect, but it was structure, and in structure lay safety. Now, step with me into a small courtroom, perhaps within a temple hall. A man stands before the elders, his voice steady but insistent. His neighbor has accused him of stealing grain. The elders listen, their faces calm, their eyes steady. Witnesses are called, contract examined, oath spoken before gods. The accused places his hand on a sacred object, swearing his innocence. If proven guilty, restitution will be demanded, grain returned, fines paid, perhaps even harsher penalties if deceit is uncovered. Yet what matters most is that the dispute does not linger, does not fester into violence. Justice restores balance so that life may continue peacefully. Pause here. Imagine yourself in that room. The cool air thick with incense, the murmurs of voices steady, the elders' presence reassuring. Justice here is not swift thunder, but quiet balance, not spectacle, but resolution. Stay with me, because soon we will read contracts pressed into clay. But first, notice how justice was lived in daily life. A farmer signed an agreement with a neighbor for shared use of a canal. A merchant promised delivery of goods in exchange for silver. A father arranged a dowry for his daughter's marriage. Each of these was pressed into clay, witnessed, stored. These contracts were not only words. They were anchors, tying lives of fairness, ensuring memory endure beyond spoken promises. Now, let us open one of these tablets. Its surface is small, rough, yet its signs are precise. It records the sale of a plot of land, the boundaries described carefully, the payment listed in silver shekels. Witnesses' names are pressed at the bottom, their presence ensuring truth. Imagine the relief of the buyer, the reassurance of the seller. The transaction is not left a memory alone. It is preserved clear, unchanging. In this, both feel safe, protected. Pause here. Imagine holding such a tablet in your hands. Its clay cool, its surface etched with signs. You trace them gently with your fingers, feeling the permanence, the steadiness. This is not fragile paper, not fleeting ink. This is earth itself, bearing witness. And here is another twist. Justice was not only about punishment. It was also about protection. Law spoke of protecting widows from exploitation, ensuring children received inheritance, guarding the poor from unfair treatment. The gods were seen as guardians of justice, watching closely, punishing false oaths, blessing fairness. To act justly was to honor not only society but divinity. Now, let us turn to the laws themselves, not to dwell on their severity, but to hear their intent. If a builder's house collapsed and killed its owner, the builder bore responsibility. If a merchant lent silver, the interest was regulated. If a farmer's dam failed and flooded his neighbor's field, restitution was required. Each law tied responsibility to action, sought to balance harm with recompense. In this, people knew where they stood, what was expected, what was secure. Pause again. Imagine yourself as a farmer reading or hearing read these laws. You know that if your canal damages another's field, you must make amends. But you also know that if your neighbor wrongs you, he too must answer. You feel steady, reassured. Life may be uncertain, but fairness has boundaries. Stay with me, because soon we will wander into the temple archives. But first, listen to how old shaped justice. When evidence was unclear, men swore before gods, invoking divine witness. To swear falsely was to risk divine wrath, illness, misfortune, loss. This fear ensured honesty, or at least caution. Justice here was both human and divine, held not only in courts but in hearts. Now, let us step into the archives of a temple. Shelves rise along walls, filled with tablets recording cases, contracts, decrees. The air is cool, faintly scented of clay and oil. Scribes move quietly, lifting tablets, reading aloud, recording new entries. The archive hums with order, with memory, with reassurance that nothing is forgotten. Imagine standing here, surrounded by thousands of small tablets, each one a voice of fairness, each one a promise of balance. Pause here. Imagine running your hand across these shelves, the tablets rough beneath your skin, the weight of justice pressing steady. You're surrounded not by silence, but by presence, the presence of laws, agreements, voices held safe. And here's the final twist. While kings carved their names into laws, it was ordinary people who lived them, a mother teaching her son to honor contracts, a father reminding his daughter that fairness brings blessing, a neighbor choosing to settle a dispute with words rather than fists. Justice was not distant. It was lived in courtyards, in markets, in fields. It was not perfect, but it was present, steady, reassuring. As night deepens, imagine again the steel of Hammurabi, standing tall in the plaza, its carved script glowing faintly in lamplight. Families walk past. Children pausing to stare at the image of the king and the god. They do not know every law carved there, but they feel its presence, its weight, its promise. Life is fragile, yes, but it is held within boundaries, guided by fairness, steady by justice. Pause one last time here. Imagine yourself standing before that steel, the night cool, the air quiet, the stone solid before you. You breathe slowly, deeply, reassured by its presence. You are not alone. You are held by the same desire for fairness that carried Mesopotamians, the same rhythm of justice that shaped their nights and days. And so, chapter 15 closes gently with this thought. Law in Mesopotamia was not only decree but comfort, not only punishment but protection, not only order but reassurance. It gave weight to promises, fairness to disputes, safety to communities. And in chapter 16, we will step into another rhythm. The healing arts, the ways Mesopotamians sought health, treated illness, and cared for one another. But for now, let the steel stand in your mind, solid and steady, a quiet guardian as you drift deeper into rest. The steel of Hammurabi still glows softly in the lamplight of memory, its carved laws promising fairness and order. Yet beyond rules and contracts, another rhythm shaped Mesopotamian life. The rhythm of care, of tending to bodies, of easing pain, of restoring breath. Tonight, let us walk quietly into the world of healing in Mesopotamia, where herbs simmered in clay pots, where incantations were whispered softly, where the boundary between medicine and prayer blurred like smoke rising from incense. Imagine a narrow lane in UR, the dawn cool and quiet. A woman leans over a small fire in her courtyard, stirring a pot filled with herbs. The air smells of coriander, garlic, and resin. Beside her sits a clay jar of honey, another of beer, and a bowl of crushed dates. These are not for feasting, but for healing, a remedy for a child with fever. She stirs slowly, murmuring a prayer under her breath, her words soft, steady, like a lullaby. The child lies on a mat nearby, his forehead damp with sweat, his breathing shallow but calm. His mother dips a cloth into the warm mixture, wrings it out, and lays it gently across his brow. In that simple act lies medicine, love, and hope woven together. Stay close, because soon we will step into hands of healers, into temples where priests whispered incantations, into homes where women tended the sick, into fields where herbs grew wild and patient. But first, pause here in this courtyard. Notice how healing was not loud, not dramatic, but intimate, rooted in care and presence, in small gestures that carried immense meaning. And here's a twist worth holding gently. Medicine in Mesopotamia was never only physical. It was spiritual, too. Illness was often seen as caused by imbalance, by spirits, by displeasure of gods. So remedies combined herbs with prayers, poultices with incantations, oils with offerings. Healing meant addressing both body and spirit, soothing flesh while calming fear. Now, let's follow a healer into the temple. He is an ASU, a physician, trained in the arts of practical medicine. His table is spread with tools, small bronze knives, pestles and mortars, reed tubes for blowing medicine into ears or nostrils. Shelves hold jars of oils, resins, dried plants. He listens to a man who has come with pain in his stomach. The healer feels the man's pulse, studies his eyes, asks about his meals. Then he crushes herbs into powder, mixes them with honey, and offers a remedy with a prayer to Gula, goddess of healing. His words are calm, his hands steady, his presence reassuring. The patient sips slowly, hope easing his worry. Pause here. Imagine the scent of herbs filling the air, the sound of pestle against mortar, the warmth of oil lamps glowing against stone walls. The healer's voice is low, steady, his movements careful. You are not afraid. You are comforted, held by the assurance that someone knows what to do, that care surrounds you. Stay with me, because soon we will meet the Ashipu, the exorcist healer. But first, notice how knowledge was preserved. Tablets record dozens of remedies, recipes for wounds, for fevers, for stomach pains, for coughs. They list herbs, licorice, cumin, thyme, mustard, willow. They describe poultices made of clay and water, ointments of oils and fats, brews of beer and honey. They describe bandages wrapped with linen, wounds washed with milk or wine. These were not random guesses but careful practices, observed and repeated, passed down through generations. Now, let us step into the presence of the Ashipu, the priestly healer. His role is not herbs but spirits, not poultices but incantations. A woman comes to him, her nights restless, her dreams filled with shadows. He prepares a small altar, lights incense, sprinkles water, and chants words meant to drive away illness-causing demons. His voice rises and falls like a soft river, carrying with it reassurance. The woman closes her eyes, breathes slowly, and feels calm returning. Whether the spirits leave or not, she is comforted, her mind eased, her body relaxing. Pause here. Imagine the smoke of incense curling upward, the chant echoing softly in the chamber, the flicker of lamplight against stone walls. You feel held, not by explanation, but by presence, by the steady voice, by the ritual that tells you are not alone in your suffering. And here is another twist. The lines between ASU and Ashipu were not rigid. Often they worked together, blending herbs with prayers, poultices with chants. For Mesopotamians, healing was never divided neatly between science and spirit. It was holistic, weaving both, seeking to soothe the whole person. Now, let us wander into the fields beyond the city, where herbs grow wild. A woman bends low, gathering leaves of thyme, blossoms of chamomile, roots of licorice. She knows where each grows, what each does. Some soothe pain, some ease cough, some calm fever, some bring sleep. She carries them in a woven basket, humming softly as she works, the sun warm on her back, the breeze gentle. Later, she will dry them, crush them, mix them into remedies. Her knowledge is not written on clay, but remembered in hands and heart, passed from mother to daughter, from healer to healer. Pause again. Imagine yourself walking beside her, the scent of wild herbs filling the air, the sound of reeds rustling in the wind, the basket warm against your hip. Healing begins here in earth, in roots, in leaves, in the patient rhythm of gathering. Stay with me, because soon we will step into the world of surgery, though gently, safely. But first, remember how healing was also comfort. A mother's touch, a father's steady presence, a lullaby whispered in the dark. All were forms of medicine. To soothe fear was as vital as to soothe pain. And in Mesopotamia, comfort was as valued as cure. Now, softly, let us approach the rare cases of surgery. A man injured in a building accident lies on a mat, his wound deep. The healer washes it with wine, applies a poultice of clay and herbs, and binds it with linen. His hands are firm but careful, his voice steady. The patient groans, but the healer murmurs encouragement, continues patiently. Days later, the wound begins to close. The man begins to walk again. Not every case ended well, but every case was met with care, with effort, with hope. Pause here. Imagine the healer's hands warm against your skin, the linen cool, the poultice soothing. You are not alone in your pain. You are tended, supported, reassured. Healing is not only outcome but presence. And here's the final twist. Healing in Mesopotamia was not reserved for the elite. Temples offered care. Families shared remedies. Neighbors tended one another. Yes, kings and priests sought the best healers, but ordinary people too found comfort in herbs, in chants, in companionship. Healing was communal, woven into daily life. As night deepens once more, imagine a household at rest. A child coughs in the dark. His mother rises, stirs a mixture of dates and honey, gives it to him gently. His father whispers a prayer, laying his hand on the child's head. Slowly, the cough eases, the child's breathing steadies, sleep returns. The parents smile softly, lie back down, close their eyes. In that small act, love becomes medicine, care becomes healing. Pause one last time here. Imagine yourself lying on a woven mat, the scent of herbs drifting in the air, the sound of a lullaby soft against the night. You are held, soothed, healed, not by grand cures or by steady care, by gentle presence. And so, chapter 16 closes gently with this thought. Healing in Mesopotamia was not only herbs or chants, not only poultices or prayers. It was a weaving of care and presence, of earth and spirit, of knowledge and love. It was reassurance in suffering, comfort in illness, hope in weakness. And in chapter 17, we will step into the realm of trade and travel, exploring how goods and ideas move along rivers and roads. But for now, let the scent of herbs linger. Let the lullaby fade softly. Let the calm of healing carry you deeper into rest. The night of healing is past, and the household rests once more. The fevered child breathes steadily, the herbs doing their quiet work, the prayers lingering like smoke that drifts long after the flame is gone. But Mesopotamian life was not confined to courtyards, temples, or fields. The rivers flowed outward, roads stretched far, and with them moved people, goods, and ideas. Tonight, let us walk gently into the rhythm of trade and travel, where boats glided across slow waters, caravans plodded through dusty plains, and marketplaces filled with voices from near and far. Not hurried, not chaotic, but steady, like the current of the Euphrates itself. Imagine dawn on the riverbank. The Tigris glimmers in pale light, its surface calm, reflecting the pink edge of the sky. Along the shore, boats are being loaded, long, narrow vessels carved from wood, their hulls patched with bitumen, wait patiently. Men carry jars of oil, baskets of grain, bundles of reeds, jars filled with dates. Donkeys bray as they are unloaded, their burdens shifted onto the boats. A captain checks his ropes, adjusts the rudder, and nods to his crew. Soon, the boat will slip into the current, carried downriver toward the great cities, its cargo as valuable as any treasure. Stay close, because soon we will step onto that boat, feel the river carry us, and wander into the markets where goods arrive. But first, pause here at the river's edge. Listen to the sound of water lapping against hulls, the creak of ropes tightening, the low voices of men calling to one another. The air smells of mud and reeds, of oil and grain. This is not only departure, it is connection. The beginning of a thread that will tie one city to another, one people to another, one household to another. And here's a twist worth holding gently. Mesopotamian trade was not only about goods, it was about trust. A jar of oil meant nothing unless the buyer believed it would arrive safely. A caravan of wool had no value if agreements were broken. Contracts, sealed in clay, underpinned every journey. The rivers carried not just cargo but promises, floating from one shore to another. Now, step onto the boat with me. The crew pushes off, poles digging into the muddy bank, the vessel gliding forward. The current catches, slow but steady, pulling the boat downstream. The captain lifts a pole, guiding away from sandbars, his eyes scanning the bends ahead. The crew sits quietly, oars ready if needed, but mostly they let the river do its work. The water hums against the hull, the breeze cool on your face. You breathe deeply, feeling yourself carried along, as though the river itself is rocking you into rest. Pause here. Imagine the rhythm of the water, steady and soft, like breath itself. The journey is not hurried. Days may pass before arrival, but each moment is filled with calm. The gentle slap of waves, the occasional cry of a bird, the quiet conversation of the crew. Stay with me, because soon we will reach the markets of the city. But first, notice how the river is both road and lifeline. Boats carry grain from countryside to temple, wood from distant lands to builders, stone from quarries to masons. Fishers cast nets from smaller boats, their catches sold along the banks. Children watch from shore, waving as boats pass, dreaming of journeys they may one day take. The river is constant, yet always moving. Now, after days of slow travel, imagine arriving at the city of UR. The harbor bustles with activity. Boats crowd the docks, their cargo being unloaded into storerooms. Merchants call instructions. Workers carry baskets on their shoulders. Scribes sit with tablets, recording each jar, each measure. The air is thick with sound, voices bargaining, animals braying, water splashing. Yet within the bustle there is rhythm, each task known, each roll clear. The goods move like blood through a body, sustaining the city with nourishment. Pause here. Imagine yourself standing at the dock, the smell of river water mingling with grain and oil, the sun glinting on jars as they are lifted. You feel the pulse of connection, the certainty that this city is not alone but tied to others by these steady threads of trade. And here is another twist. Mesopotamia, though fertile, lacked many resources. Timber, stone, metal, all were scarce. So trade was not luxury, but necessity. From the north came wood, from the east came tin, from the west came stone, from the south came pearls and rare shells. In return, Mesopotamia offered grain, wool, textiles, oil, and knowledge. These exchanges built not only wealth but relationships, trusts that spanned distances, voices carried across deserts and seas. Now, let us wander into the market itself. Stalls line the streets, shaded by reed mats, their tables heavy with goods. A merchant from the east displays copper ingots, their surfaces gleaming dully in the sun. Another sells fine wool dyed with natural colors, soft beneath your fingers. A woman offers jars of honey, thick and golden, their lids sealed with wax. Children dart between stalls, their laughter mingling with the calls of vendors. The air smells of spices, of roasted fish, of fresh bread. You walk slowly, your senses filled, not hurried, not pressed. This is no mere place of buying. It is a meeting ground, a place where voices from many lands mingle, where stories are exchanged alongside goods. Pause again. Imagine yourself touching a bolt of cloth, its weave smooth, its color rich. You hear the vendor's gentle voice, his promise of quality, his pride in his wares. You are not rushed. You are drifting, present, soothed by the hum of life around you. Stay with me, because soon we will leave the river and join a caravan. But first, remember how markets were also places of joy. Musicians played lyres and flutes, entertaining crowds. Storytellers recited tales of distant lands, their voices drawing listeners close. Children learned to count coins, their small hands fumbling with silver. Families shared meals of bread and dates beneath shaded awnings. The market was not only commerce, it was community, a heartbeat within the city. Now, step with me into the desert road, where a caravan sets out at dawn. Donkeys stand in long lines, their backs laden with sacks of grain, jars of oil, bundles of cloth. Their bells jingle softly as they move, their hooves kicking up dust. Merchants walk beside them, staffs in hand, their cloaks wrapped tightly against the wind. The road stretches ahead, long and empty, but they are not afraid. They know the path, the wells along the way, the shelters at night. Step by step, mile by mile, the caravan moves like a slow, patient river across the land. Pause here. Imagine the sound of the bells, soft and steady, like chimes in the breeze. Imagine the sway of the donkey you ride, the sun warm on your shoulders, the horizon stretching endlessly. You are not hurried. You are carried forward gently, steadily. And here is another twist. Trade was not only goods, it was ideas. From distant lands came new stories, new gods, new technologies. A traveler brought tales of mountains beyond sight, seas beyond imagination. Another brought knowledge of metals, of wheels, of new ways to shape clay. Trade spread not only wealth but wisdom, weaving cultures together. Now, after days of travel, imagine a caravan reaching a foreign city. The gates open, guards nodding in welcome. The donkeys are led to markets, the merchants greeted by partners they have not seen in months. Goods are exchanged, contracts sealed, friendships renewed. The travelers rest, share meals, tell stories of their journeys. For a few days, the city is alive with voices from many lands. Then, the caravan prepares to return, carrying new goods, new tales, new connections. Pause again. Imagine yourself resting in that city, lie on a woven mat beneath a foreign sky. The sound of another people's language drifting around you. You feel both far and near, distant yet connected, held by the same human rhythm of exchange, of sharing, of belonging. Stay with me, because soon we will return home. But first, let us visit the great overland routes and the Gulf waters. Ships with square sails carry goods across the Persian Gulf, their decks heavy with copper, pearls, and exotic shells. The sea was slower, riskier, but it carried treasures that no river could. Merchants prayed to gods for safe passage, offered incense before departure, and gave thanks upon return. The sea, like the river, was both road and mystery. Now, the caravan has returned, the goods unloaded, the contracts fulfilled. Families rejoice, neighbors gather to see the treasures brought home. Children marvel at shells from the sea, at bright metals, at strange fabrics. For them, the world feels larger, richer, yet still connected to their courtyard, their temple, their hearth. Trade has brought not only goods, but wonder, a glimpse of lands beyond imagination. Pause one last time. Imagine yourself sitting in your courtyard, holding a smooth shell from a distant sea, its surface cool against your palm. You close your eyes, and in that shell you hear not only the ocean, but the voices of all who carry to hear. The sailors, the merchants, the donkeys, the scribes. You feel connected, not alone, part of a web that stretches across rivers and deserts, across time itself. And so, chapter 17 closes gently with this thought. Trade in Mesopotamia was not only movement of goods. It was a weaving of trust, the carrying of stories, the spreading of wonder. It tied cities to each other, people to people, generations to generations. And in chapter 18, we will step into the quieter rhythms of leisure and play, exploring how Mesopotamians rested, amused themselves, and found joy beyond work and trade. But for now, let the river's current linger in your mind. Let the caravan's bells fade softly. Let the market's hum dissolve into silence, carrying you deeper into rest. The markets are quieted, the caravans have returned, and the boats rest tethered along the riverbank. After long days of labor, of trade, of building and farming and traveling, there came moments when the people of Mesopotamia turned to something lighter, something that soothed the spirit as surely as bread soothed the body. Tonight, let us walk softly into the world of leisure, where children played games in dusty courtyards, where adults gathered for music and laughter, where time itself seemed to stretch out gently, like the slow current of the river. Imagine a courtyard at dusk. The air is cooling, shadows long across the mud brick walls. A group of children crouch together, their hands busy with small clay tokens. They toss them onto the ground, laughing as they try to land them in patterns. Others play with knuckle bones, their voices rising in playful competition, squeals of delight echoing against the walls. A little girl cradles a handmade doll of cloth and wood, its painted face warm but beloved. She hums to it softly, rocking in her arms as though it were her child. These are not grand games, not noisy spectacles, but simple joys woven into daily life, carrying comfort and laughter into the evening. Stay close, because soon we will watch the adults as they gather for board games, for music, for feasting that lingers beyond hunger. But first, pause here with the children. Listen to their laughter, light and clear, like water trickling over stones. Imagine yourself among them, picking up a clay token, tossing it gently, smiling as it lands. There is no hurry, no competition that matters. Only play, only joy, only the soft thread of amusement that eases the day's weariness. And here's a twist worth holding gently. Mesopotamia gave us one of the oldest known board games in the world, the royal game of You Are. Its board, carved with squares and decorated with rosettes, carried dice and tokens across paths of chance and strategy. To play was to sit face to face, to laugh at luck, to cheer a clever move, to pass time and companionship. The same game pieces have been found across centuries, suggesting it endured, beloved, generation after generation. Imagine families gathering in the lamplight, the board spread before them, the dice clicking softly against wood, the tokens sliding across squares. The game was not just pastime. It was connection, conversation, memory made tangible. Now, let us drift into one of those households at night. Oil lamps flicker, casting golden light across walls. A father leans forward, his hand poised above the board, his children watching eagerly. He tosses the dice, their roll echoing softly in the room. A small token moves forward, landing on a rosette. The family cheers quietly, their laughter mingling with the hum of insects outside. The mother plays next, her smile calm, her movement steady. The game unfolds slowly, not rushed, each turn a chance for teasing, for laughter, for the warmth of togetherness. Pause here. Imagine yourself seated among them, the board before you, the lamp glowing softly, the warmth of family surrounding you. The game is not fierce. It is soothing, steady, filled with companionship. Stay with me, because soon we will listen to music again. But first, notice how leisure was not wasted time. It was renewal, in play, in laughter, in music. People found strength for tomorrow, reassurance that life was not only labor but joy. These small moments carried them, softened their burdens, reminded them of belonging. Now, let us turn to music once more, but in its gentler, everyday form. In the courtyard, a man plucks a lyre. It sounds soft and golden. Children gather near, swaying slightly to the melody. A woman joins with a small drum, her rhythm steady, her smile calm. Neighbors drift in, drawn by the sound, until the courtyard is filled with quiet humming, with soft clapping, with voices raised not in chant or prayer, but in simple enjoyment. The music rises like smoke, curling into the night, carrying hearts into rest. Pause again. Imagine hearing that lyre, each note shimmering, each string humming low. The sound is not loud but delicate, like ripples across water. You breathe slower, feeling the music as though it were played only for you. And here is another twist. Even kings played. Archaeologists have uncovered banquets painted in reliefs. Kings reclining with cups in hand, musicians playing at their side, dancers moving slowly before them. Leisure was not only for the poor or the young. It was for all. The same rhythms carried through palaces and courtyards alike, proof that joy belongs to everyone, no matter their station. Now, let us wander into a feast. A long table is spread with bread, roasted meat, dates, and jars of beer. Families and friends gather, reclining on mats, passing food from hand to hand. Laughter flows as freely as drink. A storyteller rises, his voice clear, weaving tales of heroes, of distant lands, of clever animals. The listeners smile, nod, laugh at familiar turns. The night stretches long, the lamps flicker, the food dwindles, but the joy endures. Leisure here is not idleness. It is fullness, the fullness of voices, of stories, of belonging. Pause here. Imagine yourself at that feast, a cup in your hand, bread warm on your lap, the sound of laughter and story filling the night. You are at ease, safe, welcome, part of the circle. Stay with me, because soon we will turn to sport and competition. But first, let us linger with storytellers. Their tales carried not only amusement, but wisdom. Parables of animals taught lessons of humility, cleverness, kindness. Epics reminded listeners of courage, of loyalty, of friendship. To hear a story was to learn, to laugh, to dream, and as the voice carried into the night, Children fell asleep in their parents' laps, their dreams filled with the images of the tale. Now, softly, let us step into the world of sport. In open courtyards and fields, men practice wrestling, their bodies strong, their movements graceful. Children race one another, their feet kicking up dust, their laughter ringing. Hunters tested their skills with bows, their arrows flying true, though more often for practice than for need. These moments of competition were not cruel. They were play, a chance to test strength, to build bonds, to celebrate vitality. Pause again. Imagine yourself watching a wrestling match, the dust rising softly as two men grapple, their laughter breaking as one stumbles. Then both collapse smiling. The crowd claps, children cheer. It is not battle, it is joy. And here's the final twist. Leisure, like work, was communal. Rarely did one sit alone. Games, music, feasts, stories, sports, all were shared. Togetherness was the true source of joy, the reminder that no one stood apart. In play, in laughter, in song, the people of Mesopotamia found what was most human, companionship. As night deepens, imagine once more a quiet courtyard. The children sleep now, their dolls beside them, their tokens scattered. The adults linger, their voices soft, their laughter fading. The lyre rests, its strings still vibrating faintly in the air. The lamps burn low, casting long shadows across the walls. The household settles, hearts lightened, bodies eased, minds comforted. Leisure has done its work, restoring balance, weaving joy into the fabric of life. Pause one last time. Imagine yourself lying among them, a gentle game board beside you, the hum of music fading, the warmth of laughter lingering. You breathe slowly, deeply, carried by the same rhythm of play that carried them. You are safe. You are soothed. You are part of their circle. And so, chapter 18 closes gently with this thought. Leisure in Mesopotamia was not idle escape. It was renewal, joy, companionship. It was laughter shared, music played, stories told, games enjoyed. It was a reminder that life is more than labor, that even in ancient times, people sought and found joy. And in chapter 19, we will step into the world of belief and myth, where gods walked in stories and dreams shaped by faith. But for now, let the laughter fade softly, the lyres hum linger faintly, the tokens rest quietly, carrying you deeper into sleep. The laughter of games and music has faded, leaving the courtyard quiet under the stars. The lamps burn lower, the tokens rest where children left them, and the soft night air carries the scent of bread cooling on stone. Yet even in stillness, another current flows through Mesopotamian life, a current of faith, of myth, of stories whispered by firelight and carved into clay. Tonight, let us walk gently into that current, into the world where gods and humans live side by side, where myths explained the stars, where dreams carried messages, where stories gave comfort as surely as any blanket. Imagine yourself lying beneath the Mesopotamian sky. The constellations shimmer, arranged not randomly but meaningfully, each star a sign, each cluster a message. A priest in UR gazes upward, his clay tablet on his lap, marking the movement of planets, the rising of stars, the curve of the moon. To him, the heavens are not silent. They are a book written by gods, each symbol a word, each alignment a sentence. For Mesopotamians, the skies spoke, and listening to them was both science and devotion. Stay close, because soon we will hear the great myths told by storytellers. But first pause here under the stars. Imagine their glow above you, steady and calm, their light cool on your face. You breathe slowly, feeling that same quiet all the Mesopotamians felt, that the universe was alive, speaking, holding meaning in its vastness. And here's a twist worth holding gently. Mesopotamian gods were not distant abstractions. They were woven into every part of life. The rivers were ruled by gods. The storms carried divine will. Even the growth of grain was the gift of a deity. To live was to live in partnership with these unseen yet ever-present beings. Now, let us listen to one of their most enduring stories, the creation myth of Enuma Elish. A storyteller sits at a feast, his voice low and steady, his audience leaning in. He begins with the waters, mingling together, Apsu the fresh and Tiamat the salt. From them came the younger gods, lively and restless, their noise filling the heavens. But Apsu grew weary of their clamor, and conflict began. The story unfolds slowly, with battles and creation, with Marduk rising as champion, slaying Tiamat, forming the heavens and earth from her body. The listeners nod, not in fear, but in understanding. This tale explains why the world is as it is, why order emerges from chaos, why gods must be honored, why life itself carries both struggle and harmony. Pause here. Imagine yourself among the listeners, the storyteller's words wrapping around you like a soft blanket. The tale is vast, filled with gods and battles, yet the telling is calm, rhythmic, safe. You do not feel tension. You feel wonder. Stay with me, because soon we will hear of Gilgamesh, that king whose story still echoes. But first, let us linger with the gods. There was Anu, lord of the sky, serene and powerful. There was Enlil, god of air and storm, his breath the wind, his anger the storm. There was Ea, wise and cunning, lord of water and wisdom. There was Ishtar, goddess of love and war, radiant and fierce, her presence stirring both desire and fear. There was Shamash, the sun, bringer of justice, his light falling equally on all. And there was Nana, the moon, whose silver light guided travelers at night. Each god was present, alive in daily life, woven into prayers, into offerings, into every humble act. Now, softly, let us turn to Gilgamesh. In the great city of Uruk, long ago, lived a king of unmatched strength. Yet his story was not only of power, but of friendship, loss, and the search for meaning. The tale tells of Enkidu, wild man of the steppe, who became Gilgamesh's companion, his equal, his brother in spirit. Together they faced dangers, slew monsters, and defied gods. Yet when Enkidu died, Gilgamesh was broken, filled with grief. His quest for immortality led him to distant lands, to Utnapishtim, survivor of the Great Flood, who told him the secret of life's brevity. And in the end, Gilgamesh returned not immortal but wiser, knowing that his true legacy lay in the city he ruled, in the walls he built, in the stories told of him. Pause here. Imagine yourself hearing that epic told by a scribe, his voice deep, his cadence steady. You feel not anxiety but reflection, not fear but calm recognition. The story is as old as humanity's longing for meaning, its acceptance of mortality, its search for legacy. And here is another twist. The flood story told to Gilgamesh echoes one you may know from other traditions. A boat, a storm, a survivor carrying life through chaos. Mesopotamians told it long before, inscribing it into their clay. This shows how myths flow like rivers, crossing lands, shaping cultures, carrying echoes that endure for millennia. Now, let us step into the temple during a festival. Priests chant hymns to Ishtar, drums beat softly, incense fills the air. Statues of gods are adorned with fine clothes, their eyes polished with care. Offerings of bread, beer, and oil are laid before them, the people bowing low. This is not fear but reverence, not distance but closeness. For Mesopotamians, the gods were companions in life, powerful yet present, to be honored with devotion and gratitude. Pause again. Imagine yourself among the worshippers, the smoke of incense curling around you, the chant rising like waves, the flicker of lamps reflecting off golden statues. You are not anxious. You are comforted, surrounded by meaning greater than yourself. Stay with me, because soon we will hear the quiet myths, the ones whispered in homes. But first, notice how faith touched every part of life. Farmers prayed for rain, travelers for safe passage, mothers for healthy births, rulers for justice. Every act of labor, every moment of rest, carried a whisper of devotion. Now, in a humble home, a mother tells her child the tale of Dumusid, shepherd and beloved of Ishtar. His death brought mourning. His descent into the underworld left the earth barren. His return brought life again. The child listens, eyes wide, comforted by the rhythm of death and return, loss and renewal. These stories taught not only about gods, but about life cycles, its rhythms, its patterns. Pause here. Imagine yourself listening as a child does, your head resting against soft fabric, the mother's voice gentle, the story unfolding like a lullaby. It is not frightening. It is soothing, reassuring that death is not end but part of a cycle, that renewal always comes. And here is a final twist. Myths were not only stories. They were truths, not in fact, but in meaning. They carried wisdom, comfort, reassurance. They gave shape to fears, turned chaos into narrative, made sense of the unpredictable. In telling them, people felt less alone, more connected, both to each other and to something vast. As night deepens, imagine once more lying beneath the stars. The constellations shimmer, the myths alive in their patterns. You see Ishtar shining bright, Shamash rising with the dawn, Nana glowing silver. The stories are above you, around you, within you. You breathe slowly, feeling the vastness, the calm, the connection. Pause one last time. Imagine yourself drifting into sleep with these stories wrapping around you like a soft cloak. You are safe. You are part of something larger, timeless, enduring. And so, chapter 19 closes gently with this thought. Faith in Mesopotamia was not distant dogma. It was presence, story, rhythm. It was the stars above, the myths told by firelight, the prayers whispered in homes, the chants rising in temples. It was comfort, reassurance, belonging. And in chapter 20, we will step into the underworld itself, not in fear, but in gentle curiosity, exploring how Mesopotamians imagined the realm beyond life. But for now, let the myths linger, let the gods rest beside you, let the stars carry you deeper into calm. The myths have carried us through the heavens, across the stars, into the temples and homes where gods were honored and stories were told like lullabies. But in the rhythm of life there was always another presence, not harsh but inevitable. The thought of what came after life, the underworld that awaited every soul. Tonight, let us walk softly into that realm, not with dread, but with the same calm curiosity that guided Mesopotamians when they spoke of journeys beyond the final breath. Imagine the night in you are, the stars high above, a quiet courtyard where a family sits around a small fire. The flames flicker, the air cool, the voices gentle. A child, drowsy but curious, asks where people go when they die. The mother's voice lowers, her words deliberate, soft. She speaks of the land of no return, the realm beneath the earth. It is not cruel in her telling, not terrifying. It is a place of shadows, yes, but also of continuity. Just as the sun sets to rise again, life passes into another form. The child listens, soothed by the rhythm of the tale, comforted by the knowledge that what happens after is part of the same pattern as the rivers, the seasons, the stars. Stay close, because soon we will descend with a Nana into the underworld, in a story told for generations. But first, pause here in the courtyard. Imagine the warmth of the fire, the low murmur of the mother's voice, the child leaning against her arm. The story is not meant to frighten, but to soothe, to prepare, to give meaning. And here is a twist we're holding gently. For Mesopotamians, the underworld was not reserved for only the wicked or only the blessed. It was for all. Kings and shepherds, priests and potters, all alike entered the same shadowed realm. Death was not punishment, but simply another passage, a journey all shared. In this way, the underworld was not isolating. It was communal, a continuation of togetherness. Now, let us listen to the story of Inanna, Queen of Heaven, who chose to descend into the underworld. The tale begins with her dressing in her finest robes, jewels upon jewels, each one glowing with power. She stepped down to the gates of the underworld, 7 gates in all, and at each gate she was asked to leave behind one adornment. Her crown, her beads, her staff, her robe, all surrendered until she stood naked before her sister Ereshkigal, Queen of the Dead. There, she was judged and struck down. Her body hung like a shadow upon a hook. Yet the story does not end there. Through cleverness, devotion, and compassion, she was restored, allowed to return, though not without cost. The tale of descent and return was not only myth but lesson. That death and life are entwined, that even in loss there is possibility of renewal. Pause here. Imagine yourself walking with Inanna, step by step through those gates, leaving behind one thing after another, until all is gone but the self. You feel no fear, only calm, only the rhythm of descent, the quiet of shadow, the eventual rise again. Stay with me, because soon we will meet Ereshkigal herself, ruler of the underworld. But first, notice how this myth was more than story. It explained the cycle of seasons, the barrenness of the earth when Inanna was gone, the renewal when she returned. It gave meaning to absence and presence, to silence and growth. The underworld was not only about death. It was about cycles, rhythms, the continuity of life's turning wheel. Now let us picture Ereshkigal. She sits in her throne in the underworld, stern yet weary, the weight of eternity upon her. Her realm is described as dusty, where souls eat clay, drink from empty vessels. And yet, she is not a villain. She is necessary, balancing the world of the living. Without her, there is no cycle, no meaning to life. She holds her place, steady, solemn, respected even by the gods above. To speak of her was to acknowledge the depth of existence, the part of life that lies in shadow but is no less part of the whole. Pause again. Imagine yourself standing in her hall, the silence deep, the air still, the flicker of unseen lamps casting long shadows. You feel awe, not dread. You understand her role, her place, her necessity. You bow your head, not in fear but in recognition. And here is another twist. Though the underworld was shadowy, rituals offered comfort. Families placed food and drink with the dead, believing these offerings eased their journey. Clay, figurines, personal possessions, small treasures were buried with them, tokens for the realm beyond. These acts were not born of terror, but of love, of care, of wanting their loved ones to feel nourished and remembered even after. Now, imagine a funeral in a small Mesopotamian village. The family gathers, their grief quiet, their gestures steady. They place bread, beer, oil beside the body, whispering prayers for safe passage. A child lays a toy, a simple doll, beside the loved one. Tears fall, but softly, like rain, mingle with the earth. The burial is not only farewell. It is gift, assurance, connection. The underworld may be shadow, but it is not lonely. It is filled with memories carried down, with tokens of love that endure. Pause here. Imagine yourself placing a small gift beside one who has passed, your hand gentle, your breath calm. You feel sadness, yes, but also peace, knowing the act carries love beyond the boundary of life. Stay with me, because soon we will hear the epic echoes of Gilgamesh as he confronts death itself. But first, remember how ordinary families live with the underworld in mind, not as terror, but as fact, as presence. They honored ancestors, kept memory alive, believed that bonds endured even in shadow. The underworld was not an end, but continuation, quieter, softer, slower. Now, let's return to Gilgamesh. His grief for Enkidu drove him into the wilderness, seeking immortality, desperate to escape the underworld. Yet what he found was not escape, but wisdom. He met Utnapishtim, who told him the great flood of survival, of the gift of life itself. In the end, Gilgamesh accepted mortality, returning to his city, to the walls he built, to the people he led. His story reminded listeners that immortality lies not in escaping the underworld, but in the legacy we leave, the stories told, the lives touched. Pause again. Imagine yourself walking with Gilgamesh along the high walls of Uruk, his hand resting against a stone, his voice calm as he accepts life as it is. You feel no dread. You feel peace, knowing that even kings face the same passage, and that meaning is found in life lived, not in life prolonged. And here's a final twist. The Mesopotamian underworld, though shadowed, gave comfort in its equality. No one was excluded. No one was judged unworthy of entry. All shared the same fate, the same realm, the same continuity. In this way, death was not a breaking apart, but a gathering together, another form of belonging. As night deepens, imagine yourself drifting down a long, gentle stairway, each step soft beneath your feet. The air cools, the light dims, but you are not afraid. You hear whispers of voices, ancestors, friends, strangers, all together, all present. You find a place among them, a mat to rest on, a bowl of bread beside you. The air is calm, the silence deep, the presence comforting. You close your eyes, knowing you are not alone. Pause one last time. Imagine yourself lying there at peace, the underworld not frightening but gentle, shadowed yet calm. You are safe, even here. You are part of the cycle, part of the whole. And so, chapter 20 closes gently with this thought. The Mesopotamian underworld was not a place of torment, but of continuation. It was shadow, yes, but also belonging. It was a final thread in the tapestry of life, woven with care, with ritual, with memory. And in chapter 21, we will rise again to the surface, to explore how cities endured, how legacies were built, how time carried Mesopotamia forward. But for now, let the descent linger. Let the shadows wrap softly. Let the peace of the underworld carry you deeper into rest. From the quiet shadows of the underworld, we rise again, step by step, into the soft glow of dawn. The air grows warmer, brighter, filled with the sound of birds waking along the riverbank. The land of no return fades behind us, and once more we stand among fields of grain, courtyards of laughter, and temples filled with offerings. The people of Mesopotamia lived their days fully, but they also left behind something greater. Legacies that endured long after their footsteps faded from the dust. Tonight, let us walk quietly into those legacies, seeing how clay and stone, law and story, city and field carried them forward through centuries, reaching even into our lives today. Imagine first the city itself. Uruk, Babylon, names whisper across millennia. Their walls rose high, their gates massive, their streets alive with voices. The sound of hammers echoed from builders at work. The calls of merchants mingled in markets. The chants of priests drifted from temples. These were not fragile settlements, but living monuments, crafted with intention, enduring through storm and time. Even as empires rose and fell, the memory of these cities endured, their ruins whispering stories to travelers long after their towers crumbled. Stay close, because soon we will step into the legacy of writing, but first pause here among the city walls. Imagine yourself walking along the massive ramparts, your hand brushing against sun-warmed bricks. You hear children playing nearby, their laughter carried on the wind, while traders guide donkeys laden with goods through the gate. The city breathes around you, alive yet eternal, its form of memory carved into the land. And here is a twist worth holding gently. These cities were not only built for defense or trade. They were symbols, reflections of human ambition and imagination. To build walls so tall, to lay bricks so carefully, to carve canals that fed fields. These acts were not just necessity. They were statements of belonging, of permanence, of leaving a mark that time itself might struggle to erase. Now, let us turn to writing, one of Mesopotamia's most enduring gifts. On clay tablets, with reeds pressed into soft surfaces, they etched cuneiform signs, wedge-shaped marks that carried words across time. At first, these marks counted grain and sheep, measured jars of oil, recorded debts and contracts. But soon they grew into more. Hymns to gods, laws for cities, stories of heroes, letters between friends. Writing turned fleeting speech into lasting memory, preserving thoughts for centuries. It was a revolution of the quietest kind, one that still whispers in every book, every letter, every screen today. Pause here. Imagine yourself holding a clay tablet still warm from the kiln, the marks sharp, the surface smooth. You trace the wedges with your finger, knowing they hold meaning, that they carry voices from another time. The tablet feels heavy, real, permanent. You breathe slowly, realizing that in your hand lies not only clay, but memory made solid. Stay with me, because soon we will step into the laws themselves. But first, notice how writing was also personal. A father teaching his son how to press a reed into clay. A scribe smiling as he crafts a hymn. A student practicing signs until they are neat. Writing was more than record. It was connection, a bridge across time and distance, a way for voices to be heard even when their speakers had long gone silent. Now, let us recall Hammurabi's stele, standing tall with its carved laws. Its black stone gleamed under the sun, its surface etched with words of fairness, of punishment, of order. It promised justice, clarity, stability. To see it was to know that life was guided not only by whim, but by rule. The laws were not perfect, not always gentle, but they were lasting. They shaped the idea that societies could be governed by written principles, not only by power. That idea still walks with us today. Pause again. Imagine yourself standing before that stele, its surface cool, its carvings deep. You read the lines slowly, not rushing, letting each word settle. You feel the weight of its promise, the sense of structure it offers. You are not lost in chaos. You are guided, protected by words carved in stone. And here's another twist. The Mesopotamian legacy was not only in grand works, but in the ordinary. Recipes written on tablets, simple letters between friends, contract for marriage, tallies of sheep. These too endured. When archaeologists uncovered them, they found not just kings and battles, but lives of ordinary people, still speaking after thousands of years. The legacies were not distant abstractions, but warm, human voices saying, "We were here. We lived. We loved. We worked. We dreamed." Now, let us walk into the fields where another legacy lies. Mesopotamians shaped land and water with canals and levees, guiding rivers into fertile plains. Their innovations in farming, plows pulled by oxen, irrigation ditches cut by hand, fed generations. The grain they grew sustained not only their own, but fed trade, supported temples, built cities. Their understanding of the land still lingers in methods of farming that echo through time. Pause here. Imagine yourself standing by a canal, the water gliding slowly past, the fields green with barley, the breeze carrying the scent of earth. You see farmers guiding oxen, hear the rustle of stalks, feel the rhythm of hands sowing seeds. The land itself is legacy, shaped and sustained, carrying forward life. Stay with me, because soon we will enter the realm of myth again, but in its enduring form. For another legacy of Mesopotamia is story itself. The epic of Gilgamesh survived on clay, its words crossing centuries to reach us now. Its themes, friendship, grief, longing, acceptance, still speak, still comfort, still remind us of what it means to be human. To read it is to sit beside those ancient listeners, to feel the same wonder, the same reflection. It proves that even across millennia, voices can still whisper to one another in the dark. Now, imagine a modern reader sitting with a translation of Gilgamesh by lamplight. The words carry the same rhythm, the same story told in you are long ago. The reader pauses, smiles, reflects. The connection is real, alive. The story endured, its legacy unbroken, its power unchanged. Pause again. Imagine yourself holding such a book, the words soft under your eyes, the story steady in your mind. You are not alone. You're linked to those who first told it, to those who wrote it on clay, to those who listened under starry skies. And here is the final twist. Legacies are not only what survives in stone or clay. They are what survives in memory, in influence, in echoes that ripple outward. Mesopotamia's cities may have crumbled, its empires faded, but its gifts endure in our writing, our laws, our stories, our farming, our very ways of living. Their presence lingers in our present, quiet but unbroken, like a river that never stops flowing. As night deepens, imagine once more walking through a ruin. The bricks are broken, the walls fallen, but the air still holds whispers. You hear children laughing, scribes pressing reeds into clay, merchants calling in markets, priests chanting hymns. The legacies linger, not in ruin alone, but in all that has followed. You close your eyes, hearing their voices as though they were beside you, alive again in memory. Pause one last time. Imagine yourself lying down, the clay tablet beside you, the story of Gilgamesh still in your mind, the steel of Hammurabi steady in the distance. You breathe slowly, feeling the continuity, the endurance. You are part of a chain, held by the same legacies that carried them forward. And so, chapter 21 closes gently with this thought. Mesopotamia's legacies were not fragile. They were written in clay, carved in stone, sown in fields, told in stories. They endure even now, whispering across time, reminding us where we came from. And in chapter 22, we will bring all of this together in a soft, tranquil conclusion, weaving a final lullaby of Mesopotamian life as we drift into rest. But for now, let the legacies linger. Let the stories endure. Let the walls stand tall in memory, carrying you deeper into calm. The stories have carried us far, from the cradle of rivers to the quiet of courtyards, from bustling markets to the stillness of temples, from the laughter of games to the calm shadow of the underworld. And now, Softly, we arrive at the closing of our journey. The lamps burn low. The clay tablets rest upon their shelves. The river flows steady beneath the moon. Tonight, in this final chapter, let us gather every strand, life, love, labor, leisure, faith, legacy, and weave them into one gentle fabric, a lullaby of Mesopotamia that will cradle you into rest. Imagine standing once more on the riverbank at twilight. The Euphrates glimmers silver, its waters soft against the fading light. The reeds rustle, the breeze cools your skin, and the sky deepens from gold to violet. In the distance, you see boats moored, their sails tied, their crews resting after long journeys. Along the banks, families walk slowly homeward, baskets empty now after a day's trade. The city beyond hums with quiet, not silence, but a softer tone, as though all voices are lowered together, preparing for night. Pause here. Feel the air around you, still and calm. The day is ending, but not in sorrow, rather in peace and fulfillment. You breathe slowly, and the river breathes with you, steady, constant. Stay with me, because soon we will walk once more through the city. But first, remember what we have seen. Farmers bent over barley fields, their oxen pulling plows in rhythmic steps. Builders laying bricks, one atop another, raising walls that touch the sky. Women grinding grain, kneading dough, baking bread whose scent filled the courtyards. Scribes etching marks into clay, preserving voices for ages. Musicians plucking lyres, children laughing with tokens and dolls. Each detail, each rhythm, was life itself, ordinary, yet enduring, woven into history. And here's a twist worth holding gently. Though their days ended thousands of years ago, their lives were not so different from ours. They loved and grieved, worked and rested, dreamed and remembered. Their voices are gone, yet their presence lingers, not distant, but close enough to hear when the night is quiet. Now, let us walk softly through the streets of UR one last time. The clay walls glow faintly in lamplight, shadows long and tender. The markets are closed, their stalls folded, but the smell of spices still drifts faintly in the air. A potter closes his workshop, his hands dusted with clay. A shepherd drives his sheep into pens, their bleats low in content. A mother hums to her child, rocking gently in the doorway. The city is alive, yet subdued, its rhythm slowed to match the heartbeat of the night. Pause here. Imagine yourself strolling along these streets, your footsteps slow, the air cool. You do not hurry. You do not need to. Each turn, each shadow, each whisper brings calm. Stay with me, because soon we will step into the temples one last time. But first, feel the presence of the city. It is not stone and clay alone. It is memory, breath, heartbeat. Even now, though the walls are broken, the life remains. You feel in your chest, steady, comforting. Now, enter the temple of Uruk, quiet in the night. The incense is burned low. The chants faded, the offerings resting upon altars. The statue of Inanna stands serene, her eyes gleaming in lamplight, her robe carved with care. Priests whisper their final prayers, bowing low before leaving. The space is vast yet intimate, filled not with noise but with presence. You walk slowly across the cool floor, your steps echoing gently, your heart calm. The temple holds you, not in awe alone but in reassurance. Pause again. Imagine yourself kneeling before that statue, not in fear, not in demand, but in gratitude for the day lived, for the night given, for the simple rhythm of breath. You feel seen, steady at peace. And here's another twist. Temples were not only for gods, they were for people, too, places of gathering, of safety, of memory. They stood for centuries, not as distant monuments, but as living hearts of cities, pulsing with devotion and belonging. Now, let us wander beyond the walls, into the fields one last time. The barley waves gently under moonlight. Silver ripples across dark earth. Canals glisten like ribbons, carrying water that feeds the crops. Farmers rest in their homes, their tools leaning against walls, their animals settled in pens. The land breathes softly, waiting for dawn, yet at peace in night. You walk along the edge of a field, the earth firm beneath your feet, the air cool with the scent of soil. Pause here. Imagine yourself lying down among the grain, the stalks whispering above you, the stars shimmering overhead. The earth cradles you, steady, ancient, unhurried. You close your eyes, breathing with the rhythm of the land. Stay with me, because soon we will listen to the last stories told, the ones whispered not to crowds but to children. But first, feel the land's gift. Without it, there was nothing. With it, there was everything: bread, oil, life itself. Its rhythm was a rhythm, and in it, we too can find calm. Now, enter once more courtyard at night. A family sits together, the father telling a story, the mother humming softly, the children curled beneath blankets. The tale may be of Gilgamesh, of Inanna, of Demused, or perhaps simply of ancestors, of grandparents remembered, of lives honored. The children's eyes flutter closed, their breathing slowing, their dreams carried by the story's rhythm. The fire glows low, the walls embrace them, the stars shine quietly above. Pause again. Imagine yourself as one of those children, your head against soft fabric, the storyteller's voice carrying you into sleep. You feel no fear, no tension, only comfort, warmth, safety. And here's a final twist. Every story, every song, every prayer, every gesture was a way of saying, you are not alone. In Mesopotamia, as in life itself, connection was the greatest treasure. Connection to land, to gods, to family, to community, to memory. Even now, across millennia, you are connected to them by listening, by imagining, by remembering. As night deepens fully, imagine yourself drifting into silence. The rivers flow still, the fields rest, the temples stand, the courtyards hold families close. The underworld waits, not in fear, but in patience, part of the whole. The stars shimmer, their light unchanged since Mesopotamian eyes first gazed upon them. You are part of this tapestry, woven into the same threads, held in the same rhythm. Pause one last time. Imagine yourself wrapped in a blanket, the sound of water distant, the hum of ancient voices near. You breathe slowly, evenly, your body heavy, your mind calm. You are safe, you are connected, you are at rest. And so, chapter 22 closes softly with this thought. Mesopotamia's life endures not only in ruins or in clay, but in the stories we still tell, in the dreams we still carry, in the quiet we still seek. Their world was not separate from ours. It flows into us, as the rivers flowed into their fields. And now, as the night settles, I invite you to let the story drift into silence. Allow yourself to rest, to breathe, to sleep, and when you wake, should you wish, there are more stories waiting, an all-night journey through history, each one gentle, each one woven with care. For now, let the lamps dim, let the rivers flow, let the voices of Mesopotamia cradle you softly into dreams.